Yeah.
Hi, everybody. It's just,
Hi, welcome to the Liz and Nick show.
yeah. Jeff is here, but he's gone. He's
hiding under the table.
He's signed off to try the hotel Wi-Fi as opposed to his hotspot.
Yeah. He was suffering from latency, which is a problem in men of his age.
They have medications for that, don't they?
Yeah, they do actually. Yes, definitely. Oh, I think he's back.
He's back.
Hello. Well, your video looks
good. And so sounds like we're not getting that latency that we had before.
Oh, that is excellent. We're live, just in case you hadn't realized.
Oh, hello, everybody.
We made the decision to go
Rebecca?
live without.
Good decision.
There's
Good
Becky.
decision. No, you actually have
yep.
right there. You go. There you go. You see yourself right there. Okay. Excellent. Oh, this microphone is completely blocking your view, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't have such a big one.
Well, sometimes.
Sometimes you have to bring out the big one, don't you, Jeff?
Sometimes I'm just not really sure what to say.
It needs some compensation.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow, that's a lot.
Nice one.
Hang on. Where is that? Here we go. Nope. It just takes me forever to find these things.
So we were hoping to have Stephanie on. That's a lot.
Yeah, is she going to make it?
No, she said she got booked into a recruitment dinner at her practice this evening. So
a recruitment dinner, all right?
Okay, Mike is saying your level is way too low, Jeff. Way too low.
Okay, here. Is that better?
Yeah. Ha ha ha! You're such a wag.
Rick is out flying, and Nick Camacho is on a work trip, so he's not
test.
Fair
Ooh, that's really loud.
I think he's probably still suffering from the hangover he had when he passed his engines exam.
Tim Van Ram.
No, he's in Dayton, Ohio.
Yes, he is
working.
I love Tim Van Ram's comment here, Jeff. Can you see it?
Dolly Parton penned the song "Islands in the Stream" while laying in the bathtub.
Very good. We like that.
It should have been mountains. No, I guess islands would have been better. You're right.
So is the volume better? Am I louder than I was before?
You're much louder. Considerably louder.
I hear myself very loud. Probably blowing out Rebecca's ears right now. Sorry.
You could probably go down a little bit for me.
Yeah, me too.
But what do I know?
Okay.
Hi, Tony Smith.
Yeah, I agree that the gain is just way more than it should be. We're gonna stick with this. Is that better?
Yeah,
I like
better,
that.
better.
Yeah.
Testing.
1, 2, 3.
We really have to wait for Micah to come back.
Yeah.
I think
Hello.
Micah. I think Micah might probably. I'm trying to think of a polite way of saying it.
I can tell.
I'm just going to
really
stop. I'm just not even going to try and crystallize that thought.
Okay.
Getting close, you guys. Did you want to check on the levels for the introduction, Jeff?
Well, let me just make sure we're still on Skype since I had a disconnect on.
Oh, yes. Okay. Let me do that. I'll go back over there.
Oh my God, I was supposed to do something yesterday. That's right. I was going to Photoshop a picture of Steph.
You were going to do what?
I was going to Photoshop it. I'm still going to do it, but I'll have to do it tomorrow now. Photoshop a picture of Steph.
Okay. Just to let everybody know. Go ahead.
Yep. Carry on.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep interrupting you. I guess we're still getting some latency. Just wanted to let everybody know in the live audience that Rebecca is in the live audience of the, where are we again? We're in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, at the Hilton Hotel. Thank you. What's my room, Liz?
That I don't know, Jeff. Sorry. I
Okay.
don't have that information.
I know that one. 620.
Oh.
So if you're watching live, come on over. It's a party. Anyway, so say hello,
620,
Rebecca.
isn't that a beer called 620?
1670, isn't there, or something? 16.
I don't know if there's a beer 620. Talk again.
Hello. Nice to be here.
How's that volume for her?
Little quiet.
Yeah. Well, for some reason, guys, the gain on my... obviously, I'm doing something wrong because I can only get it up to 30 decibels of gain for that microphone over there. And I don't know why I'm not able to get it higher than that.
It's fine with me.
Okay. Well, she's not going to be doing a lot of talking. She just wants to say hello. She's a live audience, and she doesn't want to be, part of the whole thing, right? Okay.
Right.
But that first item, I think you'll want to say something about the GoFundMe, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, we'll play it by ear.
Carefully.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm
You might wanna
thinking
just
of.
do that.
Yeah, maybe I'll just mention it. Okay.
Beer,
I don't
pot.
Yeah, I understand.
because I work
Whatever.
for Ajax Junior.
Yeah.
I don't work for that company.
Oh yeah. You work for who? Ajax?
Ajax Junior.
Okay. Excellent.
Hey, Jax.
Okay.
Hi, Jax.
So I'm going to mute your mic,
Thank you.
and we're going to go ahead and do a sound check.
My camera's broken.
Oh, is it?
No, it's not. She's working fine.
It is.
Yeah.
Just keeps panning across the same landscape over and over and over again.
Pardon me.
Oh, that's
Well, my garden's only so big,
I know. A pretty big garden.
Yeah. That's what we've heard. Okay. Let's check Radio Roger.
You're listening to the
You guys-
Pilot Guy Show. The view
Twigs.
from
Are those
What?
twiglets?
I was just going to wonder, do you get twiglets in the
Yeah,
States?
love twiglet. Not in the States, I don't
Okay.
think, but here we do.
No, I don't know. What is that?
It's got Marmite on it.
Yeah, it's got Marmite. It's, yeah. It's
It's
a
a
little
sort of
crunchy.
a cocktail snack, sort of a little
Yeah.
snacky do.
Well, I'll have to
Have
try
you-
that
got-
next time I'm over there.
Yeah, full of umami.
I like them.
umami.
Oh,
I
I like you. Oh, mommy.
I think that's the
I like
first
your
thing I
mommy.
ever ate that had Marmite on it was twiglets.
Ah.
My grandmother used to love twiglets. And she liked the odd cocktail before dinner.
She likes the old what?
She liked the odd cocktail before
Oh,
dinner.
cocktail.
Cocktail.
Okay, fair enough.
Drink up, Nick.
Sorry. It's my hearing. It's not very good anymore, my hearing.
Right. Uh-huh.
Well, I'm not sure it's a hearing that's not so great.
Well, that too.
Are you guys recording yet, or
No.
Oh, that's a very
Are
good
you
idea.
trying to push us along? Is that what you're doing?
no? I just
I like it when...
I got my little mental checklist. I try and run
Okay.
through.
All right, I'm gonna hit the record button and see what we got.
all right, where the hell's mine? Where's it gone?
I don't know.
It's disappeared. Audio hijack. There you go, sweetie.
All right. Oh, let me look at the
Run.
intro.
I'm running.
Okay. And I don't have to say that stuff because we have a Radio Roger. And because I'm... Oh, you know what? No, it's not going to work.
I think this is better this way. Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Radio Roger.
Oh, if we're going to go in seniority order, it's that way.
Who cares? Okay.
APG seniority, but if it's seniority, it's
Exactly,
that way.
Oh, no.
out.
Who cares who wins? It's the it's the joke one here. After the SAS, who dares who
Here's
wins?
who wins, yeah.
Right.
What was that SAS operation in London where they took on it was an embassy. There was something going on.
Yeah, they stormed an embassy. An embassy was taken over by terrorists.
Right. I remember that so clearly. It's the first time I ever really clicked into what the SAS was and what they did and who they were and stuff.
They did a really good job taking it back, but it was the first time they really had live TV cameras monitoring what was going on, and the military hadn't really grasped the fact that the terrorists could watch what they were doing live on their televisions inside this embassy. So,
hey guys, look at those guys rappelling down the side of the building. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
I remember
it was a good learning lesson. The Iranian embassy, yes, well done.
Yeah, Pip. 1981. Oh my God, that's so long ago now.
I know.
I can't believe we're in 23 already. Holy mackerel.
Can you believe it? We thought the end of the world was coming 2001, right? Or 2000.
Hi, Pierre from cold Sweden.
Well, that's true. In fact, I've just been rereading 2001 Space Odyssey and listening to Arthur C. Clarke's comments about they conceived that film in the 60s, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
Pretty amazing.
You know what happened 82 years ago today? Nick, you don't get to answer this. You already know.
Okay.
82 years ago today, wonderful Amy crashed her plane into the Thames and died. You know, Nick talked about her on his last plane tale.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful Amy.
January 5th, 1942, was it 40?
Yep. She was in the ATA then, delivering an airspeed Oxford to Kidlington or somewhere. Got lost in foul weather. Parachuted into the Thames.
And then a guy jumped in after her and he died too, right? Wasn't that?
Yep. He died of hypothermia. She was never recovered.
That's amazing,
went in,
isn't
parachuted
it?
in the water, and they never found a body.
I guess that's the current in the Thames. I probably got.
Well, there are some pretty nasty bits of it. Yeah, you're quite right. Apart from the fact it was the middle of bloody winter and freezing.
Yeah.
One palm tree looks like it's going to the back to bonk, Nick.
Are those cows
creeping
in the
up
background?
behind me?
I think I see some cows there in the background. Got cows in your backyard? Or is that rugger?
No, I think they're just...
Oh, palm fronds. They're just palm fronds.
Yeah, I think they are. Just,
I thought it was rugger for a minute, but no.
No, he's gone to bed, I think, rugger.
Okay, Jeff, are we ready?
I think we're getting close. Let me do the sound check for Radio Roger.
Beer's nice.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door. WAPG.
That was it.
There's a new name.
Yeah, Pierre.
Pierre Engblom.
From cold Sweden.
From Sweden.
Nick and I were just saying how it hasn't been cold where he is, and it hasn't been cold really where I am for a while.
Turteltak min vän betala.
So how was the sound check?
Sounded good to me.
Did you hear it?
I did.
Okay, good. All right. I think I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, here we go.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door. WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy episode 551.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. With your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 2C at the Hilton in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Today's show is recorded on the 5th of January, 2023.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Put your light and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, an airport worker is sucked into a plane's engine in Alabama. The U.S. says a Chinese fighter flew within 20 feet of a U.S. plane. More news, your feedback, and today's plane tale. Crash investigation is no accident. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger. Flight 551 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He is an award-winning TV and radio reporter currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins in New York City. Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff at a major legacy airline based in Atlanta, Georgia. And joining me today from across the pond in his studio,
in Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
I need more screens. Professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot. Not your scream. Oh, shoot.
Sorry about that.
That was great.
No problem.
Oh, okay. Now we're now that the rehearsal is over. So I had it all set up so nicely, but because I had to redo the internet situation, the iPad that I had over here that I could remotely fire off sound things, I can't do that anymore. So now I have to put all of it on this little tiny screen. And it's just not as
Size matters.
as it was. Size, in this case, size does matter. All right. So I'm going to pick up from, thank you, Radio Rogers. I forgot to mention 1010 Wins as well. But did you notice that I switched microphone positions during the intro?
Did. Absolutely.
I scrambled.
Well done.
Because I felt bad for Rebecca over here. Let's see. There she is. There's Wave. Yeah, she couldn't see see what was going on here. So it just didn't make sense to have the microphone over there. Okay, here we go. Get over here and then back over here, and we should be just fine. Okay, take 2. Do you hear that outside?
Nope.
We can. That's good. This thing is doing a good job of... There's some motorcycle guy.
Before you start
going,
again, I have to say, tu iltak min vän betala for Pierre again. He didn't hear it the first time.
Ah. Okay. I think he heard it that time. And what is that? Is like, please give me 2 beers?
Well, it should be. No guarantees. 2 beers, please. My friend will pay.
Ah, see? Because he knows that in what? How many different languages? 100 different languages?
If only. Some common languages, yes.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Thank you, Radio Roger. He is an award-winning TV and radio reporter currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM in New York City. Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a pilot at a major legacy airline based in Atlanta, GA. And joining us today from his studio...
In Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
Professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Well, hi there, Jeff. Lovely to be back on the show. Looking forward to 551. And I'd just like to point out that the United Kingdom has had the hottest year last year beat all records. You can tell by my back garden. It's looking very tropical now.
It looks very tropical there.
It's gorgeous here now. You ought to come visit.
And people are complaining about this whole global warming thing. Hey, it looks like you're doing much
it's
better.
Working fine. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. And here's someone from a place to stand and a place to grow. In Toronto, Ontario, Canada, retired financier and aviation enthusiast, spreadsheet master, and our producer, it's Liz Piper.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Liz.
And we also have a live studio audience person over here to my stage left or stage right. I don't know. It's one of those things. This way, my left hand. Rebecca Saylor from Ajax Junior Airlines. is with us. She resides in this area, and it's so nice to see her again. Thank you for joining me in the live studio, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca. You're very brave coming and joining this bunch of lunatics.
It's nice to be here.
All right. Yeah, she is very brave. Okay.
Have a good show, guys.
Thanks, Liz. All right, let's do some news.
Stand by for news.
Thank you, Paul Harvey. All right, let's start with this piece of tragic news. Just a few days back, on the 31st of December, 2022, an Envoy Embraer ERJ-175 on behalf of American Airlines, registration November 264, November, performing flight 3408 from Montgomery, Alabama to Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, was preparing for departure at the gate when a baggage handler was killed, being ingested into the left-hand engine. The FAA confirmed a fatality occurred while flight 3408 was still at the gate. The airport was closed for several hours as a result. The NTSB is investigating. The family of the baggage handler reported the ground worker involved was a wife and mother of 3. The NTSB stated that the aircraft was parked at the gate with the parking brakes on when a ground worker was ingested into an engine. And now we've just found out recently that there is a GoFundMe. And so let me put that up on the screen here and share that. Here we go. In loving memory of Courtney Edwards, a GoFundMe is set up for Danielle Profit. Anyway, she was the young mother of 3 who was killed in this accident. So we'll have information about the GoFundMe campaign if you want to help out the family that's left behind of this tragedy. Really no other details. I mean, the airplane was not moving. It was at the gate. As I said, the park brakes set. And it just kind of goes to show the incredible power that these engines have. Even, I'm guessing, at idle power. If you get too close, very large intake, and these big fans can suck you right into them. And I mean, I don't know what really else to say other than it's a tragedy, and our hearts and prayers go to her family and friends.
Well, you're quite right, Jeff. It's an awful situation to happen, and, you know, very, very sad. However, it is a pretty dangerous working environment for the ground personnel around an aircraft. Those engines are, you know, they're not in a safe position unless it's an aircraft like yours where they're way up on the tail. Mm-hmm. Most aircraft have potted engines under the wings. They're right at people height. And unless you're very, very careful, if you're used to moving around the aircraft and you don't appreciate that the engines are running, it would be very easy to step in front and you know, just be pulled off your feet. Funnily enough, when this first happened, I didn't know many of the facts. I assumed they had taxied in, mm-hmm. and they were talking about the fact they had no auxiliary power unit, which meant that they would have had to have kept their engines running for longer because they needed to get ground power on the aircraft before they shut down the engines. So there was no interruption of lighting and air conditioning, that sort of thing in the cabin, which obviously is a bit upsetting. If you're a passenger, you'd be a bit worried about that. Pardon me if the light suddenly went out. Because normally when you shut down, the auxiliary power unit provides those services. But it sounds like this was on startup, perhaps. I'm not sure, in which case they would have started up, if they didn't have an APU, they'd have started up on stand, at least one engine, In the 340, we used to have to start 2 engines to get full electrical power so we could disconnect the ground power. And if you're not familiar with those procedures, if you're still walking around, and of course normally the aircraft push back with the engines dead, and they start up during the pushback once they've got a reasonable distance away from their parking position. And there's no real threat to people like baggage handlers who are wandering around. So, you have to ask yourself what safety procedures there are in force to advise people that the engines are running and that they're to be extra careful around the aircraft. And for my entire flying career, I was advised that all our company personnel and all personnel we employed to come to our aircraft would obey the fact that the aircraft anti-collision beacon was a signal that the engines were running and that you weren't to approach the aircraft. So we didn't, if we were in this situation, we used to leave the beacon running until we'd shut down all the engines, and then the last thing that went off was the beacon, and then people could approach. And the same thing when you started the engines. The beacon went on very early so that people had time to move away, and then you'd start your engines. So I don't know, but chatting with our friends like Colonel Jeff, the handsome Captain Jeff, he said that was not recognized in his experience in the United States. So I just wondered what the situation was in the US.
Well, first of all, I didn't realize until you just mentioned it that the APU was an op and they were using those kind of procedures. And I'm thinking nothing that I have here in Evernote says anything about that, but I just looked at the source from the Aviation Herald. And so is that what you're basing that information on, the comments?
It was from the discussion we had in our little forum of experts that we often chat to. That's where I gleaned that nugget from, and I assumed it was general knowledge. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear it because that was information that I didn't know anything about. So, that changes a lot when it comes to how this may have happened.
Now, I don't know if they've got multiple sources of information to indicate that that was the situation. So we're not convinced that that is correct or not, but it has been mentioned in relation to this accident. And for those of you who don't realize, not having an auxiliary power unit means that you're running the engines in your parking position so that you've got electrical power to the aircraft so that you can then pull out the ground power that would have been providing it, and you push back with your engines already running, which is not common. So if you've got ground personnel around who are unaware of the subtleties of that change in the position at the time when you start your engines, may not have realized, which might be down to training and awareness, and whoever's supervising the safety on the ramp. Just not making sure that all the personnel there understand what's going on. I'm sure there will be many lessons to be learned. But in my experience, and I hate to say it, one area that has continually concerned me over all the years I was flying was safety on the ramp, partly because it's hard with all the different types of people from working with different companies doing different jobs around aircraft. It's hard to ensure that they have all received training. It's not like they all work for the airline. Many of them don't. Many of them work for subcontracted organizations. So you're not often completely aware of how good their training is, their safety training. So that's a problem. You really do need to make sure that everybody comes under the same safety umbrella. It's not an easy thing to achieve. Yeah,
it's just, as you mentioned, the ramp is a dangerous place, especially when you're talking most of the aircraft out there that have wing-mounted engines, and even the big ones like you used to fly, Nick, as you mentioned, what they still come up to about waist level or so, the bottom of the intakes.
Oh yeah, the imports. Yeah, they definitely. Yeah,
So, and then when you have a situation like this with an operative APU, which is not I guess with this airplane, it's not a common thing. Yeah, I can definitely see confusion contributing to, or misunderstanding contributing to this terrible accident. And in this case, it might be a great idea when an airplane's coming in that has an APU inoperative that you kind of have a safety huddle and talk about, what's going to be different and how are we going to be, safe and smart about this operation.
Yeah.
And yeah. Wow.
I mean, in my experience, when I was operating without an APU and I knew I was going to be leaving the engines running after taxiing in, I would try and get the message ahead. But the communication between us and the air traffic is easy. Mm-hmm. Getting the message from the company frequency even to our ground personnel who are at that particular gate is a nightmare. It used to be really, really hard. And you say, well, okay, but I mean, eventually somebody's got to plug into a headset and you're going to speak to them, the person on the ground there, but you've got to have parked in your position and they've got to have had a headset. And after a while, they began to try and speed this up by not requiring headsets for you when you taxi in, and trying to get the message to the ground crew that you've still got two engines running as you taxi in and that everyone's to keep clear until the ground power has been connected, because they're not approaching the airplane with the ground power because you've still got the beacon running, and you're trying to get the message to them, which you can't shout out of the window. It's ridiculous that you've got to get the ground power before you shut down. It becomes a really frustrating safety potential, a bad safety potential hazard for you and everybody around you. Well, not so much for us because we're in no danger, but all the people on the ground are.
Right. And as you mentioned at the beginning, when we started this discussion, the airplane that I fly, and most of my career I've flown airplanes with tail-mounted engines, are way up in the air and out of the way, out of harm's way. I'm glad that that's the configuration that I fly, because it just reduces the amount of risk involved.
Yeah.
I remember pushing back from a gate at DCA, and the guy goes, clear to start number 2. And we always, on this airplane and the Mad Dog, it was a Mad Dog actually, we always started the number 1 engine first and then the second one. But it doesn't really matter. There's no reason not to start the number 2 first and then the number, it's just like half a dozen one, 6 the other. And the guy said, and I said, why did he just say clear to start number 2? I said, I can't start number 1? He said, no, because we have personnel in the way or something like that. And I'm thinking, that engine is like way up on the tail.
Are these people on stilts?
I just looked over at my first officer like, what am I missing here? What? How is anybody in risk from starting one or the other? I mean, nobody should be back there anywhere near those engines. Anyway, so I just went, okay. And I just looked over him and I said, just start like, what we normally do. just forget it. I don't want to have an argument with the guy. Anyway, again, a tragedy. And as you said, Nick, I'm sure that we're going to learn something from this, and we'll try to make it a much safer operation in the future. But
it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, having seen all the different ways and all the different permutations at different airfields in different countries of how they organize ramp safety and ramp communications. It's often completely different from one airfield to another.
Yeah, and I don't know how many times we mentioned this on the show. I mean, at least once a show. Communication is so important and it's essential, and especially, okay, listen, Liz. When see, now I'm having trouble communicating with Liz, and she's having trouble communicating with me. See how important that is? Anyway, but the same frustration, Nick, going into a gate and trying to use hand signals, which, some people may know, others may not. Others may think that the hand signal you're using means something different than what you think it's. It's very frustrating at times when you go. And my frustration stems mostly in my history and anecdotal experience with APUs being inoperative and flying down to a very hot place like in southern Florida and trying to get them to connect air conditioned air to the airplane before I shut down the engine. And they're just looking at me like, okay, the power's in, and they're kind of giving you the signal for the power, and I'm trying to give them the signal for the air, which is very similar. And they're just trying to figure out, well, what's going on? Aren't you getting Yeah, well, then after a while they start giving you the other signals that are pretty clear. Anyway. We could talk for hours about this, but I guess we should move on. We have a lot of news. All right. Moving on to the next item from Fox13now.com, Provo, Utah. One person is dead and 3 others injured after a small plane crashed Monday afternoon at the Provo airport. Provo city officials said the private airplane crashed immediately after takeoff around 11:35 a.m., that is. One person died at the scene. Another was taken to the hospital with critical injuries, and 2 other people received what appears to be minor bumps and bruises, which is pretty darn amazing when you're looking at these pictures, which we'll have in the show notes, and Liz is showing us right now on the video. How anybody survived this crash is just beyond me. One of the eyewitnesses...
pretty mangled, isn't it?
It is. Let's see. The airport was shut down following the crash. And they didn't, they said that it was going to be closed until at least noon on Tuesday. Provo airport manager Brian Torgeson said the aircraft only made it about 10 feet off the ground before going down. It's just, nobody knows what happened, he said. Immediately after takeoff, something occurred to cause the aircraft to lose control. There was another eyewitness report that said that looked like the airplane got about 10 feet off the ground, left wing dropped pretty significantly and dramatically and quickly and hit the runway, broke the wing off, and then the rest of the airplane just kind of cartwheeled down the runway. And as I said, one dead, one critically injured. The pilot in the left seat dead. The right seat, I'm not sure if he was a pilot or a passenger sitting in the right seat, but critically injured. And then the 2 ladies on board in the back of the aircraft. I think it was a Embraer Phenom 300, I think, 100 or 300 private jet. And, they just kind of walked away with minor injuries, which is, again, a miracle to me.
Well, that is remarkable. I mean, that weather that the photographs illustrate looks pretty awful. Do we know if that was the sort of conditions when they got airborne, or is that sometime after? I'm just thinking.
I'm thinking that it was, it was what we see here in the, the snow-covered taxiways, runway. Well, between the taxiways and runways, and then looks like some kind of a berm in the background of that other photo. But looking at this picture that we're seeing right now, Liz, on the screen, looking at the airplanes in the background, looks like they're covered in snow, maybe ice.
So that's what sort of made the hairs on the back of my neck. And Pip is also putting his money on icing. Right. I mean, I remember an executive jet in the UK. It had just frost on it, and the sun had melted the frost from one wing, but it hadn't melted the frost on the other. And the crew went, "It's only frost," and tried to get airborne, and exactly this happened. Mm-hmm. They tried to get airborne, one wing stalled, and the aircraft just at very low altitude rolled upside down and crashed. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened to this one, but of course, I'm looking at the conditions going, wow, that looks very similar.
Yeah, it does. And we have several people in our APG community who have experience with the jet, and some who are currently checked out in the airplane, or one very much like it. And it's, and then we've been having discussions in behind the scenes regarding this. And, of course, nobody knows for sure, but as Pip said, he strongly suspects that it has something to do with icing. And, based on the characteristics of the witness reports, and the wing just dropping pretty suddenly and dramatically, sounds to me like just, loss of lift, which may indeed have occurred because of ice on the wings that wasn't removed. My initial thought when I heard about this accident, I didn't know what the weather conditions were at the time. I was thinking that maybe it was some kind of a engine failure scenario that just went bad. And maybe the confusion about what rudder to use and pushing the wrong rudder, and then icing. I think you're right. Seems to be. Of course, we're just guessing, but it does sound like it might be a strong candidate for the cause of this accident.
Yeah.
But we're going to find out. Of course, the NTSB is investigating. I'm sure we'll hear something.
Oh, NTSB. Yeah, there's a nice segue for my plane tail. So we put it on.
Okay, right now? Okay. Let me find
Only
it.
joking. Only
Okay.
joking. Just bear that thought in mind for later.
Okay. Anything else to say about
Pip thinks
this one?
he believes it was snowing at the time, which adds to the,
Okay.
I wonder.
Yeah,
But
I'm not.
Anyway.
I thought, some of the early reports that I was reading said that they were indicating that they didn't think weather was a factor.
Okay.
But again, I don't know if they're experts.
Perhaps
on that or
visibility and cloud-based, that sort of thing, but,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps not keeping their aircraft clean. I don't know.
not. Right.
We'll find out.
I mean, that's, in an indirect way, weather related in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. We'll keep our ears and eyes open for updates on that. In the meantime, now, this next one, I am looking forward to this one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let's see. The U.S. says a Chinese fighter jet flew dangerously close to an American plane. This is from the New York Times. Okay. Chinese jet flew within 20 feet of the nose of an American military aircraft. Didn't look that close to me. Over the South China Sea this month, nearly causing a collision, the U.S. military said. Let's see. Skipping down here because I keep reading these paragraphs over and over. The U.S. Air Force aircraft, I think it was an RC-135, was conducting routine operations over the South China Sea on December 21st. And the Chinese fighter jet flew dangerously close, nearly causing the planes to collide. The Chinese pilot of a J-11 jet performed an unsafe maneuver, that's in quotes, flying in front and within 20 feet of the nose of a U.S. Air Force RC-135, the U.S. military said in a statement, adding that the American pilot was forced to take evasive maneuvers to avoid a collision. Okay, so maybe this would be a good time to play a video of the accident, not the accident, the incident, I guess is the right way to say that. Oh, of course I didn't set up any of my video files. Why would I? All right, let's see here. Chinese jet comes dangerously close. All right, and open. And here we go. Okay, so we're going to watch this. Okay, here's the Chinese jet. And looks pretty docile to me. And I don't know, that's definitely more than 20 feet in my eyeball calibration.
Yeah.
Maybe not. But it's nothing. I don't know. I have to be honest with you. When I first looked at this, like right here at the beginning of the video, I'm thinking it looks to me like the RC-135 is actually the one that's moving relative to the Chinese fighter jet, but maybe it's just a weird optical illusion. I don't know.
I think. I don't see the evasive action that the one.
Well, yeah, where's the evasive
He might
action?
be banking now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the problem I see is that I can't see how the Chinese pilot kept a good visual on the position of the 135 throughout his maneuvers here. I mean, from what I used to do, he used to do exactly what these Chinese blokes do.
I was going to say, let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
for good reason, because Captain Nick, for those of you who may not be familiar with his history, in the Royal Air Force flew F-4s, and you routinely did this sort of thing, right? You intercepted aircraft. And in this case, you're the Chinese J-11 interceptor, and the RC-135 would be a Soviet Bear bomber. And I don't know why the interceptor would be so far ahead of the airplane being intercepted. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's why I want.
And it's not something that we did regularly, because it's a hard formation position to hold when you're forward of the wing. Because you know that the turbulence from your aircraft is, if you're that close, is going to impinge on the wing. So you don't really want to have, and it might cause that wing to drop and the guy to turn into you, which could be very embarrassing, inadvertently turn into you. So we rarely came abeam the cockpit. We did occasionally, but we were usually out of his wingspan. So we were probably, I don't know, 100 feet away, perhaps 75 feet away, if we came abeam the cockpit. We were much closer down the back end of the fuselage, where there's much less chance of bumping into him. We did. The only time that we used to do these kind of maneuvers, right up abeam the cockpit, was if we were on one of our own tankers, trying to do a no radio tanker join and get some fuel off him. Often they were fast asleep, we reckoned, and we used to come abeam the cockpit and waggle our wings. That was the signal for, we want some gas, and they'd drop the drogues out of their pods behind to indicate that, oh yeah, okay, well, here go the hoses. Yep, you can have some gas. And if they didn't, we'd assume they were asleep. So we would just try and maneuver to cast our shadow over the cockpit a couple of times, and hopefully we'd wake them up, because we weren't supposed to use the radio. And that's when we would be in those kind of positions. But that was very rare. We wouldn't generally be that far forward with a Russian aircraft or a Soviet aircraft. No, don't know quite why they're doing that. Having said that, the international interception signals require you to come abeam the cockpit, because the flight crew have to see you. If you're going to do a proper "I have intercepted you, you're now required to follow me" signal, you need to come up well forward so that they have a chance to see you. Then you waggle your wings and start doing the internationally recognized signals, which he isn't doing, I might add. He's just drifted around. I think it might be possible that he lost sight and became a little bit unsure of the position of the 135, but if that was true, he should have banked away rather than allow himself to drift even closer. I don't like what the Chinese pilots doing. I don't think he was in full control of the situation, and I think the 135 crew were being sensible and probably banking away from him. But having said that, there's a very tense situation down in this piece of airspace, with the Chinese government insisting it all belongs to them, and the American crews behaving perfectly rightfully in a piece of international airspace and flying around in it. You can't just claim airspace is yours. You can only claim the airspace over your own country or islands that belong to you. You can't just say this entire piece of airspace is ours and you can't come in it, which is effectively what the Chinese are doing in some areas, which they're sensitive about. So I think this might be the Chinese pilot trying to interpret his commander's orders and make sure the American dogs don't come anywhere near them, or something like that. I don't know. It's an interesting one.
My professional opinion is that the U.S. Air Force RC-135 intercepted that Chinese fighter jet.
We're
and
about to shoot him down.
And snuck up on him, and they didn't even know he was there. And,
Could be.
Just to create an international incident.
Yeah, those 135 drivers, they're dreadful.
I do
Yeah,
think that part of this whole thing has something to do with the politics of the whole,
most certainly,
the relationship and the politics of that South China Sea, and I think that this may have been something that this is something we can put out in the news and like draw attention to all this. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just being skeptical, but I do like Neil's question. Did anybody ever get too close, Nick? And then Pip's response, Nick got quite close to me once. It wasn't entirely awful.
Okay, well, keep that to yourself, Pip. Neil's question is, not to my knowledge, no one actually bumped. To my knowledge, one of our guys did try to get some pictures up into the bay that ejected sonar buoys out of a Soviet Bear. So this guy was dropping sonar buoys, and it had his dispenser doors open. So Woody tried to get underneath it, and his nav was trying to take pictures of what was going on. And one of these sonar buoys came out and hit the top of his fuselage.
Oh no!
Yeah, and then the drogue had deployed, and the drogue got wrapped around his fin. So he's dragging this sonar buoy tangled up with his fin around behind him, and he actually tried to bring it all the way home, but eventually the cords that held the parachute part wore through, and it fell off.
Good thing, huh?
Yeah, well, he had nothing but a dent in the fuselage there to show for it in the end.
Huh. Wow. That is not something that I guess he was expecting.
Well, he was right underneath this dispenser.
Well, I guess he should have expected it.
Yes, I was going to say. But he's not the brightest boy,
We're talking about Nigel.
One sandwich short of a picnic. Don't worry, I don't think he's listening.
Okay. Oh, man. Good one. All right, let's continue on from Paddle Your Own Canoe. United Airlines flight to Sydney forced to divert to island in the middle of the South Pacific after engine is shut down. A United Airlines flight from Los Angeles to Sydney was forced to divert to Pango Pango, by the way. There's another very, very nice video program, podcast kind of thing out there. And the pronunciation was Pago Pago, which is the way I pronounced it before I flew the Southern Pacific and was chided for mispronouncing, even though it says Pago. I guess for some reason the what do you call them? The Polynesians and Samoans pronounce the G as an NG, so it's Pango Pango. Anyway, they feared that one of the engines on the Boeing 787 Dreamliner was had a leak developing. And so Liz, save that one. I'm sorry, I should have briefed you on that. Yeah, you can show the flight path on FlightAware. Yeah, so you can see from that the flight was heading from Los Angeles, and then about a little more than halfway, the engine started looking like it was leaking oil, and so they decided to shut it down as a precaution, and they diverted to they have all these divert airports along their route to consider when they have an issue, and I guess Pango Pango, American Samoa, was the one that was closest on their routing. And so they put it down there, and let's see, after shutting down the right-hand engine, the 7.5-year-old aircraft was brought down to a lower altitude before landing without further incident around 2.5 hours later at Pango Pango International Airport. And of course, we all know, those of us who fly, especially the long-haul stuff, or any actual jet aircraft out there, multi-engine, when you lose an engine, you have to do something called a drift down procedure because you can't stay up at that higher altitude with fewer than the normal complement of engines. So one of the first things you do is you start moving off course. If you have contact with air traffic control, you let them know that you need a lower altitude and all that, and then you get all that going. And that's why this article talks about the fact that the aircraft was brought down to a lower altitude, and then after a couple of hours, finally landed at the divert airport. So honestly, it's the only thing that it really is kind of remarkable or significant about this, or interesting. Yes, thank you, Liz. Is the fact that Pango. A lot of people are going, what the heck, American Samoa? So this is my experience when I flew in the C-141 Starlifter in the U.S. Air Force back in the 80s and was flying on a trip, and we were going to stop at Pango, American Samoa for fuel on the way down to Australia. I thought, what are they saying? What American Samoa? What does that mean? I didn't even know this place existed, and I had no idea it was an American territory. But we did. I think we weren't supposed to stay there overnight. We were just supposed to refuel, but something happened. I think there was an issue with the airplane, and we had to stay there overnight. And Liz, trust me, we didn't want to. Well, I don't know. It was an interesting experience. Now you can show the next slide. So I think I've talked about it on the show before, but the guy in a little tiny Toyota sedan wearing one of those, I don't know what to call them, sarongs or something like that, the Samoan or Polynesian, like a big, fancy towel, picked us up, and we went in this couple of these cars because they weren't very big, and took us to a place called the Rainmaker Hotel. Show the next one. I think that's the sign for the Hotel Intercontinental in Pango, and then go back again on the shot from it's a very old picture of the resort in its heyday in the 60s and 70s. Now, it was probably 1983, 1984 when we ended up staying there, but it was still pretty, it wasn't in tip-top shape, but it wasn't bad. Turns out not long after I stayed there in the mid-80s, it just kept going downhill, and they finally shut it down. I think it was run by the government of the American Samoa, and I'll have a link to a Wikipedia article regarding this this international resort in the Samoan island chain, and this is like the nicest thing out there. It was really kind of a cool place, like thatched grass roofs, and it's also the place where I lost my wedding band for the first time. Yes, I lost it more than once.
You gave it away to a native?
My original one. The original wedding band got lost, and not a good memory there. But I just to prove that I have been to Pango, American Samoa. This is my little souvenir. It's a little tiny little mug. Here, let me see if I can bring it in closer.
Oh, like it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Samoa.
So
anyway, I was just
about to drown.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place, absolutely beautiful island. And again, as I said, I had no idea that this was an American territory so far away from the United States. But pretty cool. Anyway, so as you said, Liz, probably the reason why that this was remarkable was that it was a little island that most people have never heard of, that they had to divert to. But now, unfortunately, there was really no place for them to stay. I think that was like one of the only hotels on the island when we were there, or maybe one of only a handful, but I don't think there are any now. It's not really a tourist trap anymore as it used to be, I guess. What were you saying, Liz? Yeah, that's right. That was really the main reason why we decided to talk about this story, was so I could show you my mug that I got from American Samoa.
Well, that's brilliant. Although the story would have been really newsworthy had they not diverted, because they're flying that over that huge ocean with only 2 engines under the extended twin operations rules, ETOPS, which requires you, as soon as you lose a power plant, to divert immediately. And you're only allowed to be a certain distance in time away from a suitable diversion, en route diversion, and then that time depends upon many factors. I can't go into all that now, but it was a foregone conclusion as soon as they decided that they needed to shut the engine down, that they were going to divert, because that's what the laws in which they're operating that flight require them to do. So yeah, and it's the safe thing to do. You've got 2 engines, you've just lost one. Time to put it on the nearest available airport.
Juan Brown on his Blanca Lirio YouTube channel, and I'll try to remember to put the link to that in the show notes for this news item as well. Did a fantastic job of what Nick just kind of teased there, as far as all the many considerations for identifying ETOPS alternates and diversions and that kind of thing. And he goes through in depth on all the things that were happening, all the considerations, how you pick these different places, and all the procedures as far as, 30 degrees off course and descending and a drift down. And anyway, did a beautiful job of that. So again, I highly recommend that you watch Blanca Lirio, Juan Brown's channel regarding this incident. Okay. Let's continue with the next item. This is from Paddle Your Own Canoe as well. A miscommunication error has been blamed for a flight to nowhere. I would think that wouldn't cost very much money, right? A flight to nowhere, since you're not really going anywhere. I would be wrong. Okay. Let's see. A flight to nowhere that saw a Bali bound plane full of holidaymakers fly straight back to Melbourne, Australia, where it had taken off from after spending 8 hours in the air over Australia. Disgruntled passengers blasted low-cost airline Jetstar after the blunder left them back on the ground in Victoria rather than on the golden beaches of Bali on Tuesday. Already running 5 hours late, Jetstar Flight 35 departed Melbourne at 11:14 p.m. on Tuesday. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner had been in the air for about 4 hours and had crossed 5 states when it suddenly turned back around within minutes of reaching the Australian coast. Passengers found themselves back at Melbourne's Tullamarine Airport at just before 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning following the mishap. The airline, a budget subsidiary of embattled Australian flag carrier Qantas, said the flight had been forced to divert because the Indonesian authorities refused to give permission for the aircraft to land in Bali. Jetstar normally uses smaller single-aisle aircraft like the Airbus A321 on this route, and it turns out the carrier failed to secure landing rights for the larger wide-body aircraft that was operating the service on Tuesday night. A spokesperson for the airline said miscommunication was to blame. Unfortunately, due to a miscommunication, the swap to a larger aircraft had not been approved by the local regulator in Indonesia.
They sure it wasn't Mr. Communication? This poor miscommunication seems to be getting all the blame for this.
Yeah, we're being very misogynistic here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can maybe talk to us a little bit about that, Captain Nick. These international flights are, have to be quite vetted and things agreed to upon.
Well, it's not something I'd come across before, Jeff, quite honestly. Before reading this, I didn't realize. I mean, admittedly, my airline had, only wide-body aircraft, so we didn't really face this issue. And I had no idea that they might refuse an airline to substitute an aircraft because, I'm going, what on earth difference does it make? So long as the aircraft, the wide body, is fit to land at the destination, and I'm sure it would have been, what would be the case? And I don't know the peculiarities of Bali to say, that, oh no, we only allow a certain number of wide bodies to land because the pavement, the runway is getting worn out or something. I'm going, I don't know what the situation would be. It sounds to me like they just threw their toys out of the cot rather than letting this aircraft go and land and then finding them, they made them turn back. And I'm going, really? That is just silly. I don't understand. So
I think it has more to do with paperwork and the people pushing the papers and, not
making
dotting
a
all the
point.
I's and crossing the T's.
Yeah.
And not,
So it would really annoy me if I was one of the passengers. Having said that, and this happened to my airline, we just acquired a new permissions to fly over Russia on our way to Hong Kong. And the very first aircraft to go over there was intercepted approaching Moscow and forced to land at Moscow because although this had been agreed at government level, the message hadn't got down to the air traffic controllers in Russia. And all of a sudden, this Virgin Atlantic 747 pitched up, and they went, it wasn't. It was a 340, our fleet, pitched up, and they went, no, you can't. We don't know anything about that. You can't come through our country. You are to divert to Moscow immediately, and here's to help you down. Here's a MiG on your wing. That's right. Just so you don't escape. So, the next day I was called out from standby to fly the passengers in a fresh airplane, having, smoothed out all the international communication problems, take the passengers on their second go of getting to Hong Kong. And they were actually surprisingly good about it. I thought they'd all be very annoyed, but they weren't.
I can, you can kind of not fault the air traffic controllers in Russia for, they weren't told, so they were thinking that this was highly unusual and suspect, and somebody screwed up by not making sure everybody knew that this was happening.
And it's a flight that occurs all through the night, so I think the chances of them waking up someone from the Politburo or whatever organization they needed to check, everyone was tucked up in bed, so they just said, the safest thing is to make you go home. Because the guy had to turn around eventually after refueling at Moscow, which is another story in its own, because they wouldn't accept any of their company credit cards. They had to go round cap in hand to the passengers and get cash.
Yeah.
And amazingly, there were some people carrying large amounts of cash on the aircraft, which was lucky. So they managed to buy enough fuel to fly back to London. And then the next day we had a go. And for us, it was a lot smoother.
I think I encountered this myself when I was in the U.S. Air Force flying the 141 again, because we did a lot of international flying there where, you thought you had a diplomatic clearance to overfly a certain country, and then you find out, right before, as you're trying to coordinate going into that airspace, they go, nope, no soup for you.
Yes.
And then you have to figure out if
no
you
one
can,
told me.
navigate around the area and still have enough fuel to make it to your destination and have all the required reserves and such. And I do also remember going from Darwin to the Philippines and flying over some of these little Indonesia. They're really particular there in Indonesia, apparently. Flying over these little Indonesian islands that I wasn't even sure had electricity. And we're like, going 90 degrees this way and then 90 degrees this way. And that, I'm thinking, really? I mean, what are they going to do if we just fly right over the top of this thing? Will they even know we're flying over the top? But apparently, you just can't do it. If you don't have the dip clearance for it, then you have to take alternative measures. And
it was like we used to deploy to Cyprus down the Mediterranean, and you had to go between Turkish and Greek airspace. We found it was much simpler, instead of trying to get permission, to fly down the FIR boundary. So you were, in theory, if you were exactly down the boundary between the two countries' airspaces, you weren't in one or the other. I thought that was a great wheeze.
One wing is one and one wing is on the other.
Absolutely. Okay. You either annoy nobody or annoy both of them.
Wow. Crazy. Hallboxes says China's like that. 80% is military. Yeah, I've heard that. 80% of their country's military airspace. You can't really, wander off too far off the
Oh
path
no!
that you're supposed to
And all of a sudden they'll just close airspace at the drop of a hat without any notice, and you'll suddenly lose your cruising level and have to descend like 10,000 feet. And it's happened to me. I've been so far away from Shanghai that I didn't think I was going to get there. I was going, well, where the hell are we going to divert to? Because at this height, we're going to use so much fuel, we won't have our minimum reserves when we get there. It became a real problem.
I can see that for sure. All right, continuing. This is from Aviation Herald. An ASL Airlines Belgium Boeing 737-400 freighter on behalf of FedEx, registration Oscar Echo India Alpha Juliet, performing flight 4959 from Porto, Portugal to Liège, Belgium, with 2 crew, was cleared for takeoff from Porto's runway 35 and commenced takeoff at about 21:47 local time, 9:47 dark. About 12 minutes earlier, Tower had cleared a follow-me vehicle to perform the nightly runway inspection. The vehicle entered runway 35, worked northbound, reaching the threshold of runway 17. The vehicle turned around to now move southbound when the driver saw bright lights near the threshold of runway 35, which seemed to move, and queried with Tower whether an aircraft was lining up on runway 35. Tower reported an aircraft was in their takeoff run and instructed the vehicle to immediately vacate the runway via the left runway edge. The Boeing crew saw 2 white lights but weren't sure whether these were runway edge lights due to the night environment. After becoming airborne and in the climb, the crew queried with Tower about the vehicle and received a reply that this was a misunderstanding. Portugal's GPIAA reported, according to estimation by the vehicle driver as well as preliminary analysis of the ground radar, the separation between the vehicle and aircraft reduced to 300 meters. That's close. The occurrence was rated a serious incident and is being investigated. They released that was on April 27th of 2021. We're talking about it now because they released their final report on December 30th. The probable causes: the provision of air traffic services with unified tower and approach positions provided by a single controller without any supervision, working in continuous duty without interruptions for an extended period of time in a tedious and low activity environment. Okay, so obviously fatigue is a factor there. Archaic memory aid system, ineffective and totally dependent on human action to prevent simultaneous use of the runway by vehicles and aircraft. An inactive RIMCAS, runway incursion monitoring and collision avoidance system. That would have been helpful if it was working. Decision process on the application inhibition of technological tools, in particular the inhibition of RIMCAS without a risk analysis supported by facts or mitigation measures to allow such inhibition. The absence of advanced ATC surveillance systems, including multilateration and electronic flight strips, which can offer additional protection when compared with traditional, entirely human-dependent systems. And the absence of H24 stop bars procedure or other equivalent lighting systems at all runway holding positions. And they have a few more here. I'm going to scroll down. I've highlighted some that I think are kind of important. The lack of a single frequency for all aircraft and vehicle movements in the maneuvering area, as recommended by EAPPRI, I'm not sure what that stands for, which would allow both flight crew and ground vehicle drivers to be aware of any possible threats to safety. I think that's critical. Unreliability of the radio scanners, which were installed by the infrastructure management in the follow-me vehicles, which were not user-friendly and for which no formal training had been given to the drivers on how to operate them. The follow-me driver's decision not to actively monitor the aeronautical frequency, even though it was not a mandatory requirement, and the non-standardized manner of conducting the runway inspections. Okay, so there are a lot of things that went wrong here. A lot of Funyuns, yes, they're all aligning for sure. Yeah, I mean, this is, and 300 meters, that's like, what, 1,000 feet? Maybe a little over 1,000 feet?
Yeah.
That's close.
That was close.
Very close. But it's a good thing that this sort of thing doesn't happen very often. Oh, wait, what's our next news article here? A TAP Air Portugal Airbus A321-200 was performing a flight from Lisbon to Ponta Delgada in Portugal with 180 passengers and 6 crew. Was cleared to land on Ponta Delgada's runway 30 and was already in the flare when the pilot monitoring spotted a white van at the right-hand side of the runway, about 650 meters down the runway. The crew initiated a go-around. Only after the aircraft initiated the go-around, Tower advised the vehicle on the runway. Oh, yeah. Watch out for that vehicle on the runway.
Yes.
The aircraft climbed to 5,000 feet, positioned for another approach, and landed without further incident. The vehicle had sped off the runway after being overflown by the Airbus about 15 minutes after the go-around, and they have not seen that vehicle since. No. So let's see. This happened about a year ago, a year after that first incident. Different place, of course, but it was, a very similar a vehicle on a runway when airplane is either taking off or landing. Again, they talk about the final report and the conclusions, and they talk again about unified tower and approach positions, single controller, no supervision, work continuous duty without interruptions for an extended period of time. Okay, yeah. We've heard that one before. The archaic memory. It's like almost they took the probable
inactive
cause.
RIMCAS.
Yeah, the inactive RIMCAS again.
Yeah. So you'd think, Jeff, wouldn't you? With these two incidents, people would be very aware. Yet, only a couple of shows ago, we covered that fire engine that entered an active runway and collided with an aircraft.
Yep.
Takeoff and resulted in an appalling loss of life. And you go to yourself, well, if people aren't going to listen to the all the shouting that's happening there and saying, look, this is occurring, make sure your airfield is up to snuff, that you've got all these situations covered, that you are following the advice being given to you, but it's obviously not happening. So what do we do? I don't understand how to fix this.
I don't know. Obviously, compliance with regulatory authorities doesn't really...
Well, that would be great, wouldn't it? It would be
great.
Eventually you end up with situations where countries, their safety systems are so poor and they pay lip service to this sort of thing until the international community downgrade their safety levels and airlines are prohibited from flying there, or their aircraft are prohibited from flying in airspace like European airspace or American airspace because of their lack of safety culture, their poor safety culture. So, that's a pretty heavy hammer to hit them with, but you need something to make them wake up, because it seems that they're not capable of looking after these things themselves.
And that's something that has been used in the past many times for countries that don't have their stuff together. And But
it does worry me. It does worry, because we see it, because we're picking these. Liz is doing a great job of picking these incidents, but we can't be the only people in the world that's doing this. They've got to be, safety organizations in ICAO and the FAA and the CAA here in the UK and other countries who are going, there's a real trend here. Why aren't we stamping on this? Why aren't we encouraging these countries to really look at their procedures and threatening them with sanctions if they're not going to bring themselves up to a decent standard?
Exactly. It's a
worries
good question.
Me.
It is. Yeah, it worries me too. Okay. Let's continue with the next item in the news from Aviation Herald again, number 01H. Dana, D-A-N-A.
Dana's flying. He's flying in Nigeria now.
Yeah,
well done, Dana.
Wow.
Yeah. We haven't heard from him in a while, so now we know why. Dornier Aviation Nigeria AIEP Dornier DO 328-100. Yeah. Registration 5 November Delta Oscar X-ray.
Docs. Very good.
Docs. Performing flight 462 from Bonny to Port Harcourt. You've been there, right?
No. Oh, yes. Captain's only landing.
Nigeria with 12. Was that the place where the guy was running
that was Lagos.
Did that.
No, Port Harcourt had a few other problems. Like their power used to go out and you'd lose all your runway lights on the approach.
Nice. Who needs those stinking runway lights?
Exactly.
Let's see. This thing had 12 passengers and 4 crew, was on final approach to Port Harcourt's runway 22. Winds 250 degrees at 6 knots. Runway was wet about 6 nautical miles before touchdown. When both power levers were at flight idle, the torque of the left-hand engine indicated 24, the right-hand engine, however, 20. The aircraft continued for a touchdown to the right of the runway center line. After the power levers were placed into the ground idle position, the crew observed the left engine's torque at 27% and the right engine's torque at below 10%. After touchdown, the captain took control of the aircraft. The aircraft veered further right to the runway edge and could not be controlled. In an attempt to stop the aircraft, the first officer set the emergency brakes, put the condition levers to minimum and feather position. The aircraft went beyond the right runway shoulder, 1,190 meters, 3,900 feet down the runway. The number 4 tire impacted a runway edge light while the aircraft traveled along the runway shoulder. The aircraft went over grass about 105 meters further down the runway, entered the apron. Hello, we're here. Entered their apron after rolling on grass for 259 meters, came to a stop 3 meters short of the airport perimeter fence at the Aero Contractors ramp. No injuries occurred. The aircraft sustained minor damage. The Nigeria's Accident Investigation Bureau rated the occurrence a serious incident, and they opened an investigation and released their preliminary report in 2019. I think we must have a final report. I'm going to scroll down here. No, I guess we don't. So we're just talking about the preliminary report here, Liz, I guess, on this. No, I'm sorry. I just skipped the part where it says they're issuing a final report now. Okay, so on the 30th of December, the final report was released. The probable causes of the serious incident were asymmetrical propeller torque experienced on ground during landing roll due to propeller control unit PCU failure in flight. The contributory factor, non-recognition of the prevailing torque oscillation malfunction, non-execution of the proper checklist, excessive rudder application of minus 30 degrees after landing. So I think that means 30 degrees left. The crew were certified, medically fit, the aircraft documents and records available. The show the aircraft was certified and maintained. The analysis focuses on the crew action during approach and landing phases of the flight, use of checklist, standard operating procedures, evaluation of the tire marks, tire cracks, and the propeller control unit. Let's see, about 6 nautical miles prior to touchdown, the crew reported runway in sight. The ATC reported the prevailing wind at 250 degrees at 6 and runway 22 in use for landing. According to the crew statement, it was observed at short finals and with the power levers at flight idle position, the torque on engine number 1 and engine number 2 indicated 24. Okay, we talked about that before. However, the crew did not disclose any checklist action taken at the time of noticing this disparity in indication, which should have called for left or right prop low pitch, abnormal number 9-10, condition PCU detected low pitch condition, blade angle below FI or F1. No, that's car racing, and severe torque oscillations checklist. This disparity in engine torque, according to the flight data recorder, had occurred at 6,000 feet, which became more pronounced at touchdown to a value of 300% disparity. However, from the crew statement, these values were missed. Because they missed the true nature of the problem, they were not able to execute the correct checklist to arrest this situation. The crew action to continue the approach under a normal landing checklist instead of the abnormal 9-10 checklist was inappropriate. The crew should have discontinued the approach and pick a hold over the station to execute the applicable checklist before coming in to land. Pilot's radio communication with ATC was not standard. He reported that he was right base of left base of runway 22. What?
Now, I don't do a lot of visual circuits and never did in my civil career, but I don't quite understand what a right base of left base is.
Well, I do a lot of visual approaches, and I don't know what that means either. Let's see. While he was not at the airport circuit altitude, which did not convey his exact position. The investigation revealed certain lapses in crew adherence to checklist application and SOP compliance in this flight. So the tire track showed that the aircraft landed right of the runway centerline and veered further right into the grass verge. This indicates the effect of propeller torque asymmetry coupled with excessive rudder input of -30 as revealed by the FDR plots, especially after touchdown, which the crew were unable to arrest. The investigation believed that there was a delayed application of emergency brakes considering the distance traveled by the aircraft before it finally stopped. So in other words, there was something wrong. They didn't identify what was wrong. They continued with normal operations, normal checklists, did not refer to any abnormal checklists. And bad communication for sure.
This a lot of this has gone over my head, Jeff, because
me too.
I haven't got experience in this type of aircraft. So if there is someone out there who can do a Miami RIC, but slightly abbreviated perhaps, and explain to us what this was, how easy it is to spot in layman's terms, and how culpable the crew is, I'd be interested to know. So
I would too, because I feel the same way, Nick, because a lot of these things that I just read were like going completely over my head. I don't know anything about turboprop engines and propeller control units and all that kind of stuff.
It'd be a great one for someone to help us out with a bit of feedback, please.
Yeah. So there you go. That's what happened there.
But it sounds to me like they made a pretty lousy job of an emergency situation. So what can I say?
That's about all you can say. That's what I would say. All right. This is an interesting one.
Oh, yeah,
I
saw this
video.
Yeah.
And it was something you don't really want to see.
No.
Or at least I don't. I don't think anybody else would either. But let me see here. This will... this little window's in the way. Here we go. Open. Okay, so I guess I may need to set this up before we play the video. Okay. Battery smoke in cabin can be dangerous. And we're about to play a video of a Lufthansa flight level 350. A Lufthansa 747-8 aircraft, Delta Alpha Bravo Yankee Juliet, diverted to Chicago after a passenger laptop caught fire midair while performing flight 457 from Los Angeles to Frankfurt on my birthday, 26 December.
Oh, that's why it caught fire.
There were fireworks for my birthday. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to play the video, and it is quite amazing, actually. Here we go.
Whoa!
Yeah, so opens a bin, and it's almost like a special effects kind of smoke that you'd see at a rock concert on the stage. Here we go. We're going to loop it around again, and she opens the bin, and it just like pours out this very thick dark gray smoke, which would be very concerning. And I can see why flight attendants were treated for smoke inhalation, especially the one right there that's opening up the bin.
Yeah,
she did have a mask on. Yes.
Now, I saw people commenting, criticizing the crew, saying that they should have had all their safety equipment on, but I suspect they're just taking a first look at what someone said, the overhead thing's getting a bit warm, perhaps, or whatever. So they're taking a look in there just to see what the problem is. And, of course, they introduce some fresh air in there, and this battery fire just takes off. So, yes, having established that there's a serious fire, then you go and get your safety equipment. You don't put that on, all the head smoke hoods and fire extinguishers, etc., until you know what the situation is. And because otherwise you just terrify all the passengers, perhaps needlessly. So I didn't agree with that criticism. And we didn't see what happened afterwards. And no doubt they did their very well-trained drill, and I know for a fact that Lufthansa, much as we like to make fun of them, are an incredibly well-disciplined airline who have fantastic crew training, both pilots and cabin crew, and they would have dealt with that situation very well. I also saw some pretty stupid comments from people who don't know how to deal with this kind of an incident on an aircraft. Now, I can't speak for other airlines, but we're talking now 3 or 4 years before I retired. So 7 or 8 years ago, we had already established onboard special fireproof bags that would take a laptop or similar device, so that if one occurred on the aircraft, the cabin crew could isolate the item, not take the battery out and stick it in a sink, as I saw some bright sparks suggest, but take the entire laptop out, put it in a safe bag which sealed up, and then they had a sort of a funnel where they could pour water onto it, which is essential, because the only thing you can do with one of these uncontained battery fires is to cool it down. It's very simple. You use water. Despite the fact it's an electrical device, that is the approved method. And this bag, once you've filled it full of water, then becomes a very safe environment to let the thing cool down. Most airlines have these bags, and they're very aware of the dangers of having lithium-ion battery-powered devices on their aircraft. So I'm no doubt that Lufty dealt with this extremely well, which you don't necessarily get from all the news comments on it.
So true. I really wish there was somebody that we could refer that had knowledge of handling a situation. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I think we might have somebody right here, right next to me here in the hotel studio. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Yeah, that was sorry, that was shocking. I almost would want to look at it again to see how much smoke was coming out of the bin before they opened it, because knowing that there would be a hot item in there, I'm just looking and trying to I'm trying to see closer if she has her gloves on, because there's gloves to handle those things. And if there was enough smoke coming out of the bin to begin with to warrant that she should have had her protective breathing equipment on. I mean, I wasn't there, so I'm not going to criticize, and I hope I'm never there. But something, if I'd seen smoke coming out, I would have had things in hand, like emergency equipment in hand, and that's just me because I'm sole cabin crew. But it just looks a little. I don't want to be critical, but it looks a little disorganized. Like they.
Oh, come on, we're critical all the time. That's what we do here.
It just looks like they didn't go to the bin prepared, but maybe there wasn't smoke coming out first. I can't tell from the video. But if I'd seen smoke, I would have had 3 key pieces of equipment with me. Well, the lithium-ion containment bag kit contains the gloves, I believe. The fireproof gloves. I would have had a smoke helmet, and I would have had a fire extinguisher, and then proceeded with the procedures from then. But yeah, that's interesting.
Tim Van Ram says, take the laptop and place it in the bag, then deploy it in the sonar buoy chute. Gosh darn it, I wish they had thought of that.
Very good, Tim. Yeah.
Oh, Neil Landworm, Nev would just pop it in the champagne bucket, which is always right next to his seat 1A.
Very true.
Or, you know what I would do? I'd just open up the door and just throw it out. What's so hard about that?
Don't think I haven't thought about these things.
I'm sure you have.
I've thought, isn't there a way we could just slip a few of these things out into the atmosphere?
Yeah.
But then again, it would hit an engine, and that would be a worse problem. So
I would probably hit some poor civilian standing on the ground.
Yeah, then you'd be a heap of trouble.
I was walking along, and this flaming great laptop hit me on the head. But I happen to agree, Rebecca. If this wasn't perhaps their first, someone says there might be some smoke coming from this bin, let's open it and take a look. If they knew it was a fire, I agree, they should have gone in fully equipped. But I'm not sure that was perhaps the situation. I have a feeling they would just taking a first quick shifty at the bin to see what was going on inside, and they weren't quite expecting such a violent amount of smoke and probably fire to leap out at them. They probably got a bit of a shock there.
Yeah. We're getting a nod of acknowledgement.
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Can't say.
I know, but as I said, we're never here for any of these things, thankfully, and that doesn't keep us from saying what we think. Yes, the APG Accident Investigation Team, for sure.
Oh, we got several of those.
Yeah.
We're on call 24/7, you know.
I know. Our own go team. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go. Get out of here. Yeah. All right.
We've got a go down the pub team.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good to me. Maybe we should just end the show. Head down to the pub.
Good idea.
Let's see. Let me remove this from the studio because I need to load up one more video file here for the next news item. And another tragic accident, this one occurring in Australia. And let me add this to the stream and we'll play that while I'm talking about it. The next item from bbc.co.uk. 4 people have died after a mid-air collision between 2 helicopters near SeaWorld on Australia's Gold Coast. Queensland police say initial investigations suggest the crash happened as one aircraft was taking off and the other was landing. Those who died were traveling in the same helicopter. 3 other passengers are in critical condition. 2 UK citizens were among those killed in the crash, a Foreign Office spokesperson told the BBC. They added that officials were supporting the families of the 2 victims, who had not been named, and would remain in contact with the local authorities. 5 of the 6 people on the other aircraft, which made an emergency landing, suffered minor injuries. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the country had been left shocked by the terrible and tragic incident. My thoughts are with all those affected, including first responders, and my deepest sympathies are with those who are grieving. I would imagine the first responders, probably the scene must have been just horrific. Let's see, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, ATSB, is investigating the collision, which happened about 2 o'clock local time in the afternoon. The 2 aircraft came down near a tourist strip known as Main Beach, about 75 kilometers south of Brisbane. It's a difficult scene, according to Gary Worrell of the Queensland Police Service. It's a difficult scene due to the area it's located on the sandbank. It was difficult to gain access to get our emergency services to the scene to manage it appropriately. Images from the site show debris strewn around the area and a mangled helicopter apparently lying upside down opposite the SeaWorld resort. The other helicopter has the popular Marine Parks logo on its fuselage and appears to have made an emergency landing after the collision. Members of the public and the police had tried to remove passengers from the aircraft and performed first aid on the injured. What a tragedy. That's all we know now about this. I don't know how it happened, if it just wasn't proper clearing or miscommunication. Weather was nice. Yeah, I don't know.
I doubt very much there was any actual control at this place. It was probably just a visual flight rules landing spot.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen one other piece of video which I happened to spot, and I didn't think to give you a link to it because I assumed you had it all, but it was from inside the helicopter, which did not suffer any fatalities, and it was a piece of film taken by one of the passengers.
Wow.
And it's just as you imagine. They're sitting on a lovely pleasure flight, panning around with happy, excited holiday makers sitting in the back of this helicopter, and one of the guys in the back reaches over and taps the pilot, and he's pointing at what he has seen, the other helicopter, and before the pilot can look back to see which way he's pointed, the front of the helicopter explodes as the canopy is shattered by the blades of the other helicopter. So I mean, that's all you see. So that's the helicopter, I believe, where everyone survived. And it was the other machine that, due to the damage, presumably to the blades, that actually crashed and the tragedy happened. It's just one of those things. You can see this fantastic scene, everyone having a wonderful time, making approach down towards this spit of sand, and all of a sudden their world explodes around them.
Wow. All right. Yeah, I wish I had that video. Oh, well. Maybe if we find it and we think about it, we'll put it in the show notes and you can see that as well. Okay, thank you, Liz. All right, and finally, last item in the news. This is also from Paddle Your Own Canoe. 2 passenger aircraft hit by New Year's celebratory gunfire at Beirut's main airport. Again.
Not again.
Yeah, again. 2 parked passenger aircraft. Excuse me. 2 parked passenger aircraft at Beirut's Rafik Hariri, I don't know, International Airport, have been hit by stray bullets from celebratory gunfire to mark the new year. The aircraft, belonging to Middle East Airlines, MEA, did not have any passengers or crew on board at the time of the incident on Sunday morning. The 2 aircraft are understood to be almost brand new Airbus A321neo aircraft.
Ouch.
One aircraft, I know. One aircraft
Could you shoot at the old ones, please?
I guess, yeah, if they were aiming, maybe, but they're just firing their weapons up into the air, haphazardly. One aircraft is less than 2 years old, while the other has been flown by the new airline from when it was built and delivered in July 2020, which would make it, more than 2 years old. According to local media, the aircraft have been towed to a hangar where they will undergo repairs. They should have been in the hangar, and then they would have been damaged.
Yeah, it would have been safe.
Yeah, the damage, which appears to be several very distinctive bullet holes in the fuselage of the aircraft, is not understood to be serious. I would think it would be serious, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Well, anyway. I don't know. Yeah, I'd have thought so, but perhaps you can just put a bit of, sticky tape over it. Speed tape over it. Pardon me.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
I was going to say celebratory shooting into the air, or maybe both, is commonplace across Lebanon, especially at weddings and funerals, as well as New Year's Eve. Let's see. MEA Chairman Mohammed Al-Hout says damage caused by stray bullets around Beirut Airport is so commonplace that as many as 8 parked aircraft were struck by negligent gunfire in 2021. In November 2021. In November 22, the worrying phenomenon came to prominence when an MEA plane on final approach to Beirut Airport was struck by a stray bullet which pierced a hole in the main passenger cabin and penetrated an overhead bin. And we talked about that on a previous show. None of the passengers or crew on that short 40-minute flight from Amman, Jordan, were injured.
Good job that overhead bin didn't contain a laptop computer.
Oh yeah, it was a double whammy.
Disaster.
Following the incident, lawmakers demanded action to be taken to stop people firing into air around the airport. Okay, any volunteers?
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah. All right, that is it for our news today, and that means, you know what that means. It's time for my favorite segment of the show, which is Getting to Know Us. That time where we get all caught up with what's been happening with the crew. Well, at least the crew that's here. We can also kind of give an update on some absent crew members as well. But Nick, would you like to start us out?
Very happy to. Let me see what has happened over the week. And I'm probably going to say not a lot.
I'm not either.
No, New Year was very quiet. We didn't do very much. We have had life quietly getting back to normal as we bring down the Christmas decorations and, after Christmas, everything's a bit quiet. Throwing away all the food we didn't manage to eat. Off to have meet up with Captain Nige, who we all know, the awful Hong Kong Fooey man, and his lovely wife, who we've known for many, many years, over the weekend. I'm looking forward to that. And let me see what else there might be. Nope, nothing else at all. So that's it from me, really. Just started the new year, and looking forward to a decent 2023. Fingers crossed.
How's Zeta doing?
Zeta is doing very nicely, actually. She has her very calm moments, which is nice, and she's very playful at other times, which is also lovely. And she is slowly settling into our lifestyle, which I think is great. So, yeah, she's going to be a really good member of the family, that's for sure.
Excellent. While we are chatting with you, why don't we jump over to the cover art from the last show? And why is it not? There it is. Beautiful. I mean, it's another work of art. It is a masterpiece. Yeah, it just it's so many facets to talk about here. So why don't you tell us what's going on?
Well, I opted for the simple option, which was the Happy New Year. So thanks for letting me do that. Now, it was all centered around this lovely old masterpiece, which depicts old Father Time. And he has got a pair of wings, as you would expect from an airline pilot, and he's flying off into the distance with a scythe, because apparently old Father Time has a scythe, a bit like death, I guess. And he's grasping the leg of a baby, which is hanging upside down and not looking very comfortable, being dragged through the air. And that represents Baby New Year, apparently. And, of course, all I had to do was to substitute a few faces.
Yeah, that baby has a beard.
Yes, that baby has a black beard. And I used the youngest member of the APG crew and put his face there on Baby New Year, and I took the oldest member of the crew and put his face over old Father Time,
which is yours. Yes,
there you go. So that was good. We've got a few fireworks going off in the background, including a lovely timepiece which has the Acme logo on, as does the year 2023, and then there's just lots of champagne and stuff celebrating New Year.
Yeah, the time, and then the clock. It almost looks like a Playboy bunny if you kind of just glance at it. Yeah,
absolutely. There you go. That's brilliant. So no, I that was a relatively simple one for me. So
it was really nice.
I enjoyed doing that.
Beautiful, beautiful colors. Lots of gold and gilded frames and nice stuff. Yeah, good celebration.
Luckily, it's a subject that there's lots of art available out there.
Mm-hmm. Very nice, very nice. Okay, I'll jump in with myself. I picked up a green slip 2-day. I think that's the only thing I did over this time, or did I fly another trip? I don't know. I'm losing track of time. I guess I should look. Yeah, I did an Asheville turn. Oh, that's right. I did do that. Okay, an Asheville turn after we did the show recording last Thursday. I did that on Friday. And then I thought I would be flying over New Year's Eve and, get a nice long green slip trip. But they kept breaking these longer trips into smaller little bits and pieces. If they just called me up and asked if I was willing to fly a longer trip for double pay, I would have said, of course, but they didn't ask. And so finally I gave up, and on January 1st and 2nd, I flew a 2-day green slip trip, 3 legs the first day and one leg the first day and then 3 on the second day. And so I looked at the weather, as I always do before I acknowledge a trip or request a trip pickup. And I didn't see any thunderstorm activity, but I didn't think about the fact that this time of year, especially in the southern United States, southeast, well, actually a lot of different places around the country and the world, you get, stable air, and you get fog and, yeah, moisture, and drizzly, foggy, low visibility stuff. And so the first day going from Atlanta to Tallahassee, just barely saw what I needed to see at the very last second before uttering, go around, missed approach, whatever. Category 2 approach into Tallahassee. So we got that thing on the ground. And then the next day, we flew from Tallahassee. It's still a little bit foggy, but not too bad in the morning, and flew up to Atlanta. Not great weather, but it wasn't, category 2, category 3 weather. And then we noticed our flight to Fort Walton Beach, Destin Eglin Air Force Base, actually, was delayed for a while. And we're going, what's going on here? It must be some kind of equipment issue or whatever. Again, not thinking about the fact that the weather could be an issue. And then I started to look at that and went, So Eglin Air Force Base, it's one of those joint use airports. So that's, we fly airline traffic in there as well. And they only have a Category 1 instrument approach landing system set up. And when the weather is 1/4 mile visibility and 100 feet as far as vertical visibility is concerned, it's tough to get in. The airplane, one of the last flights the day before, tried to get in, and because of the low vis and somewhat high approach minimums, did not make it in and had to divert back to Atlanta. So they tried it again before our effort or attempt. And so it was nice because we were looking at them on Flight Radar 24 and could see them in real time. And they were down there north of the airport, circling and waiting for the weather to improve. And after about 6 or 7 circuits, they decided to, at first I thought, oh, good, looks like they're going to go down there and actually try an approach. Nope, they diverted to Panama City. And so we were still in Atlanta, thankfully, not having pushed back from the gate, and said, to the passengers, yeah, well, that didn't work for them, so we're not going to go yet because we're not confident that we're going to be able to make it in at this time. And we waited a little bit longer, and then all of a sudden the meteorological reports were showing some improvement, so we decided, let's go ahead and give this a shot. So we went down there, and again, another deja vu, like just at the very last second, saw the approach lighting system, and I called out approach lights in sight, continue, and then we saw the runway, and then we landed, and we beat the crew that tried the day before. Well, not the crew, but the airplane, the flight that tried the day before, and then the crew that were giving it an attempt before we did. We beat them into Fort Walton Beach before they were able to get from Panama City. And yeah, that's another thing. Liz is talking about the air traffic control issue in some parts of Florida. Some kind of a computer issue or something. I'm not sure exactly what was going on there, but yeah, we were not affected by that. I would think by the time that happened, we were already in the air and already in Atlanta's airspace. So thankfully, we dodged that bullet. But anyway, so it was a little bit longer trip than I thought it was going to be, but got home safely in Atlanta, and then pretty nasty weather the next couple of days. Very stormy, rainy, thunderstorm, lightning, and tornado watch. And there was a tornado, I think, that was actually confirmed south of Atlanta, down near where dispatcher Mike lives. And so some nasty weather. But that's it. This is my first normally or regularly scheduled trip for January. And I'm with my favorite first officer, Brent, and he's in the room next door. And so we're having a good time so far on the trip. That is all I have to report. I do want to show some pictures from Steph that she sent us. She asks for your forgiveness for not being able to make it to the show, but she just had a last-minute item put on her schedule, a dinner obligation. And let me get over here to this, and I can share my screen. And then this is from last Monday. And where is it? Oh, nope, it's not that one. Window. Okay. It's going to take a little bit longer than I thought. Let me find those pictures and open them up in preview then. I can do it that way. Look for Steph. I'll fix this in post. Where are you? Where'd you go, Steph? Okay, I have to do a image search. I thought I did this. Yeah, I was going to do that, but then we got doing some other things and then never did that. So, okay, so here we go, I think. Yes, okay. So let's do this first one. Looks like Steph is just having a horrible time, as usual. Here we go. And she told me I could share this. Yes. Okay. If you'll pop that in, or I'll do it. There we go. All right. Now this looks like one of their jump airplanes. Is that the Caravan? I think it looks bigger than a 182. Maybe it was a 182. I don't know. I can't tell.
I think she said it was the Caravan, but I wouldn't be able to recognize it from the picture, I'm afraid. I'm not that good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure either, but I think it's a Caravan. And then let's do the next one. Share screen. Window. There's got to be a better way to do this. Okay. And boom. There we go. That's Steph jumping out. This is definitely the 182 here. Jumping out of the 182. Looks like she's having fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's what Steph's doing. That's why she's not here, apparently.
Having too much fun. How could she abandon us and have fun on her own? It's really not fair.
It is not fair, no. All right, so that's your update on Stephanie. And we miss you, Steph. Too bad you couldn't make it. Maybe next time. All right, coffee fun time. Okay, well, then that means I can go over here and play this.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. This lady, she's a trained singer. All right. I should have her sing the whole time that I'm doing this. Okay, the Coffee Fund is your way to support the show financially. And a couple different ways to do that. One is the Coffee Fund Classic Method. And since the last show, we have our recurring Coffee Fund, original, traditional, classic Coffee Fund contributors, but no new one-offs or whatever. So we're going to move on to the other way that you can support the show financially, and that is to become a patron of the show via patreon.com. And we do have a new producer, Bill Metzger. Thank you, Bill, for joining this august group of financial supporters. So if you're interested in also being with this fine group of folks, head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee, and you'll find information on how you can do the one-off thing for the original Coffee Fund Classic, or become a patron of the show via Patreon. You'll be glad you did, and we will too.
Captain, incoming message.
All right. Did you get a physiological break?
Biological break.
Or biological?
Yes, my biology is fine now, thank you.
Oh, good. Good. I think I'm okay. I think I can. You need to take a break, Liz? Okay. All right. Let me see. Let me get to Evernote and start with this one here. Okay, we're going to start with some feedback from David. He says, "Good evening, all. A bit on the diversion you mentioned in this week's podcast. I followed this as the scheduled flight was Doncaster, Sheffield to Melbourne, Florida. I had noticed some grumpiness on social media from the diverted passengers. It seems while the captain knew he was heading to a hotel, it took 6 hours for the passengers to be told, or maybe for the airline to find the rooms. Yeah, that's probably likely the case. The captain had to get his hotel room before anybody else did, right? Some of the complaints were a little unrealistic, complaining that the airline had no staff in the airport and such like. Well, yeah. Why would TUI have staff at an airport that they don't normally fly into? Come on. It does occur to me that these diversions into relatively remote airports, which they do not normally operate from, must be a huge challenge to manage. Do the crew get involved, or are they just off to the hotel, etc.? I'll pause and try to answer that one. Sometimes, as much as you want to help, you end up getting in the way more than anything else. You don't have a lot of information about the local airport or their local procedures. You don't have any idea of what the availability is of hotels or bus transportation or all this kind of stuff. And I think usually the best thing for the crew to do is just to get out of the way, let the people that are trained to handle this type of situation handle the situation. And if it looks like the passengers are getting irate, then try to make a nice, easy or quick exit. Hopefully nobody noticing. Just get out of the way. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, going on with David's feedback. In this case, a non-broken first officer, one that wasn't incapacitated because of the food sickness. What do you call it? Food poisoning. Was dropped off the next day by diverting the Birmingham to Melbourne flight. Again, more disruption, although it seemed to only delay that flight 1 hour and 20 minutes. Between the diverted flight and its return, the holiday company had to find hotel rooms for 564 people, plus crew. The cost of this must be huge, and one starts to appreciate the ticket prices. And is Micah still with us here in the live audience? I would imagine that Bangor is just up the road from Portland. I wouldn't imagine there would be a heck of a lot of rooms available. Maybe this time of year there would be. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, as an aside, Doncaster, Sheffield was the UK's best rated airport, and my office had a great view of final approaches from the north. This was one of the last long-haul flights from the airport, which has sadly been closed by its owner, who hoped to eventually redevelop it. There is considerable protest against the plans, but key is the lack of any coordinated government strategy in connection with regional airports. Should Pip be listening, Pip's first experience of his latest jet was at the airport. Pip's gone to bed. Oh well. He claims the plane is quiet. I remember his touch and goes. Quiet they were not. I think he means it's quiet from the position inside the aircraft.
Yeah, that's right. You don't hear all that boing, boing, boing as Pip bounces down the runway.
Oh, I think we do have a recording of that somewhere here. Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
Pip space training. Very good.
Anyway, as ever, thanks for the podcast. Best wishes to all. Kind regards, David. Yeah, as I mentioned, that's a little prickly situation when you are somewhere where you had not expected to be, or someplace that the passengers had not expected. They didn't pay to be to go from the UK to Bangor, Maine. They expected to go all the way down to Melbourne, Florida. But sometimes these things happen, and you can't get too unreasonable about complaining about the fact that there's no staff, airline staff at this particular airport. I mean, that they just got to. It was a medical emergency. They had to get the guy on the ground, and this is what you got to do. I mean, same thing if it had been a passenger with a heart attack or something. It would have been. It was just a major inconvenience and a huge expense for the airline, and a major inconvenience and possible expense for the passengers as well. I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there are handling agents at most of these airports which are trained to deal with this. So it's a bit like they're not wearing your company uniforms, but they should be able to handle it. But some airports obviously are better equipped than others, and sometimes of the day there's just nobody there to handle the aircraft if it's an unexpected diversion. And some of these can be an absolute disaster. I was lucky in that I had relatively few diversions in my career, but I always tried to make sure that somebody was looking after the passengers, that they weren't just completely being ignored. But people are upset, and sometimes it doesn't matter how hard you try, you're not going to please everybody. So it's a tough job.
Yep, it is. Well, thank you, David, for your feedback, and sorry about the Doncaster Sheffield Airport. Have you been there, Nick?
Donny, yeah, I think so. I've flown around that area. I've never actually flown into that airport, I don't think. It probably was, is that the one that was Finningley? Probably was an ex-RAF airfield. Don't know for sure. I doubt it. Perhaps I've made a mistake. There's someone who'll correct me. I have a feeling Finningley was Robin Hood Airport, which I have flown to, but I don't think I've flown to that one.
According to George Puttock in the live audience, such a shame about Doncaster with the Vulcan now trapped there. He said that the Vulcan taking off from Doncaster being the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life, bar none, but it was great.
Yeah, well, trapped there, you can't fly anyway, so the fact that the airport's closed is a bit irrelevant, really.
I guess.
But very sad, of course.
All right, well, Sam Bolog sent us the next piece of feedback. On episode 355, wow, that's going back a bit, Captain Nick explained the purpose of fuse plugs. Are the tires that have been deflated reusable?
Oh, yeah. Good question, Sam.
I don't know.
And I wasn't sure, so I did a bit of digging around. And there are aircraft tires, a bit like lorry tires and very expensive tires for large machinery, the mining equipment, that sort of thing, are frequently reused, and they strip off and reapply an outer surface there to allow them to be recycled. So there are a few occasions when a tire won't be, and they're pretty expensive bits of kit, as you can imagine, because the stresses they have to take are enormous. So they're highly technical. I was quite surprised when I saw the breakdown of these two types of tires, one of which is a radial and the other is I forget the name of that one. Never mind.
A bias ply?
It's got a funny name.
Bias ply?
Yeah, bias ply. Thank you. And I was going, I don't know anything about that, because I don't know much about the construction of these things, but I find it quite interesting. But it depends what sort of a situation that you're taking them off the aircraft. So a normal braking energy tire that has been subjected to an unusually high service braking or operating condition, like you've rejected at high speed, you've rejected a takeoff. So you have, performed a very high speed abort and brought the aircraft to a halt. The tires and the brakes are going to be extremely hot. There'll be a lot of energy pushed into those tires. Or you've done a high speed overweight landing. those tires that have been subjected to that, they're removed and scrapped. No worry about that. They don't even think about recycling them. Even if a visual inspection shows no apparent damage, the tires will probably have sustained internal structural damage. And what's more, the effective tires are required to be clearly marked and documented by a serial number, with a description of the reason for removal and return to a full service tire supplier. And the reason for the documentation is so that accidentally a tire that has been possibly damaged by an unusually high energy braking situation shouldn't be put back into service. It shouldn't be recovered. Tires that have deflated due to a fuse plug release are always removed and scrapped. If they've got to that sort of temperature that has... and for those who weren't listening to episode 355, just so you understand, when you get tires very hot, there is a possibility that they will explode. So to prevent that happening, the rim of the tire has got various ports in it, which are filled with a metal that melts at a relatively low temperature. The sort of temperatures we're talking about when you do an aborted takeoff or rejected takeoff, we're talking about temperatures of 7 or 8 or 900 degrees centigrade, even perhaps 1,000 degrees centigrade. They're extremely hot. So to prevent the tires from exploding, and of course, if you're in that situation, there will be people around the aircraft. So you're not just worried about the tires exploding, damaging your airplane. You're actually worried about the safety of fire personnel and other personnel that might be close. So these fuses are designed to melt and deflate the tires before they get to the temperature at which they will explode. So that's what a fuse plug is. Now, if a tire's been through this process and the fuse plugs have melted and the tire has deflated, then that tire is automatically removed and scrapped. Now, if it's occurred during a dynamic rolling condition, the mate tire, i.e. the tire next door that may not have deflated, will have been subjected to high stress conditions. So imagine you've got a bogie of 4 tires. Say the left 2 have the fuse plugs have blown and the tires have deflated. The right 2 will have been carrying all the weight and will also have been subjected to similar temperatures, but they just haven't got quite hot enough to deflate. But they will have been in an incredibly high stress situation. So they're also removed. If this has occurred in a static, non-rolling, in other words, the aircraft was stationary, and it sometimes happens that you do a rejected takeoff, you come to a halt, the tires have yet to get to full temperature. Because all the temperature is being generated by the brakes, and that has to be transmitted through to the hubs and into the tires for them to get to full temperature. And you can watch it when you do a landing where you've used your brakes firmly. You can watch the temperatures go creeping up and up and up and up, and you're thinking, oh my Lord, better get off the runway here in case the fuse plugs blow. But it takes, several minutes for them to get to the maximum temperature. So if it's occurred in a non-rolling condition, you may have taxied clear and come to a halt, and then ask the fire guys to come and look at you to make sure you're safe to taxi in. At that point, you may get a few fuse plugs blowing. So if the mate tire, the one next door, has been in a non-rolling condition, then that tire does not have to be removed unless it fails to pass other aircraft maintenance manual or applicable service inspection criteria. And I've given Jeff in the bottom of these the things I'm talking about a link to the Goodyear tire company, and they have issued leaflet, which gives an awful lot of technical information. If you're interested, if you get a lot of joy reading about airplane tires, and if you're an engineer, it might be quite useful. Other reasons you might need to take the tires off. Well, hard landings, they obviously provide a lot of potential damage to the tires, and you'll have to consult with the aircraft maintenance manual following a hard landing, and all the wheels are checked in accordance with the usual maintenance and overhaul manuals to make sure that they're fit to stay on the aircraft. And that's just a light over brush of whether you can take a tire off and have it resurfaced, repaired, or whether you just have to throw it in a bin. And considering they're thousands of pounds each, then you obviously want to try and hang on to them if you can and get them retreaded. Okay.
Excellent. I bet you didn't know that, and I didn't. That
no, I didn't
Captain
know
Nick
much about that.
Is the Miami Rick of aircraft tires.
Well, yeah, I don't think I can claim to that,
amazing.
But I have learned a bit more about it. So interesting question, Sam. Thanks for that.
We have now as well. Yeah. And as you said, we'll have that link to that Goodyear document with all that good stuff and more.
Yeah, and I've also learned a bit about tire construction. Those images of the different layers in tires, I mean, they're full, mainly, of course, it's just layers of rubber, but also mixed in with high tensile steel cables, etc., that give it the strength. They are really quite remarkable inventions, these aircraft tires. It's quite a specialist thing to be able to make those.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is, thank you for that, Nick, and hopefully that answered Sam's question about tires that have gone through deflation due to fuse plugs. And it's now time for our plane tale this episode, and the title, The Old Pilot's Plane Tale Crash Investigation, is No Accident. Ah, that's clever. And now we wait. For some reason. Well, it was all queued up before, but now it looks like it must be downloading again, so at any moment.
The Old Pilot's Plane Tale.
Okay, so we'll start that one over again. Okay, ready? Here we go.
The Old Pilot's Plane Tales. Crash investigation is no accident. It was the 13th of May 1912, a Monday, when a Flanders F-3 monoplane took off from Brooklands in Surrey, a county of England. The grand site had opened 5 years earlier and was the world's first purpose-built banked motor racing circuit, as well as one of Britain's first airfields. The kidney-shaped track enclosed the grass area that the aircraft operated from, which was also bounded by the River Wey, a narrow body of water that ran through the circuit towards Weybridge, where it would join Old Father Thames. As a boy, I had fished in that river, pulling little sticklebacks out to watch them swim around in a jam jar before sending them back to their homes. The pilot of the Flanders F-3 was the aviation pioneer Edward Victor Beauchamp Fisher, and his passenger, the American millionaire Victor Mason. Fisher had an aviator's certificate, the 77th to be issued, had learned to fly at Brooklands and was a flying instructor there. He had also worked with both A.V. Rowe, the founder of Avro, and Howard Flanders, whose monoplane he was flying at the time. The two men had made 2 or 3 circuits of the airfield at about 100 feet, the 60 horsepower green engine operating well, when In a left turn, the aircraft fell to the ground, killing both the aviator and his passenger before catching alight and burning. In the early days of aviation, such accidents were fairly common, but what sets this one apart is that it was the first in history to become the subject of an accident investigation by an official civilian body, the Public Safety and Accidents Investigation Committee of the Royal Aero Club. Not to say that other investigations hadn't been done previously, such as Lieutenant Frank Lamb's ad hoc report on the world's first death in a powered flight crash. That had occurred in 1908, when Orville Wright had taken Lieutenant Thomas Selfridge up in a Wright Model A for a demonstration flight. At a speed of about 40 miles an hour and an estimated altitude of between 100 and 150 feet, Wright had heard a light tapping behind him. He quickly turned around and saw nothing wrong, but, as he later wrote to his brother, soon felt two big thumps, which gave the machine a terrible shaking. The airplane corkscrewed right and pitched up, rocking like a ship in rough water, one observer recalled, then nosed almost straight down. About 25 feet from the ground, the airplane began easing out of the dive. A few feet more, Wright wrote, and we would have landed safely. The skids dug into the ground and the airplane crashed with frightful force, a newspaper reported. Wright was quickly pulled from the wreckage, dazed from the pain of broken bones, but it took several minutes to free the unconscious, bloody Selfridge. He died in surgery about 3 hours later, the victim of a skull fracture. Lamb interviewed about a dozen spectators who gave the impression of being reliable witnesses, including Octave Chanute, one of the foremost aviation theorists of the day. Several of them verified what Lamb himself had seen, a chunk from one of the propeller blades break off during flight and fall to the ground. Lamb found and examined the broken propeller and took precise measurements at the scene. Based on Wright's recollections and the physical evidence, Lamb's conclusion was that the broken propeller had caused damage that rendered the airplane uncontrollable. Lamb wrote in his report, issued on February the 19th, 1909, the clicking which Mr. Wright referred to being due to the propeller blade striking the wire lightly several times. When, the vibrations increasing, it struck it hard enough to pull it out of its socket and at the same time to break the propeller. Back at Brooklands, the Accident Investigation Committee had completed its first ever report. They had taken evidence from witnesses, the designer and manufacturer of the aircraft, as well as representatives of the maker of the motor. They concluded that the aircraft had turned through about 90 degrees in the horizontal plane, that its side slipped inwards, that it struck the ground head first with the tail practically vertical, that the velocity at the moment of striking the ground was very considerable, that the fire was subsequent to the fall and did not cause the accident, that there was no reason to suppose that a structural failure occurred, that the aircraft had been flying tail down, that the engine was running when the aircraft struck the ground, that Mr. Fisher was not incapacitated at the time, and that the passenger did not cause the accident. They concluded by stating that in the opinion of the committee, the cause of the accident was the aviator himself, who failed to sufficiently appreciate the dangerous conditions under which he was making the turn when flying tail down, and, in addition, not flying in a proper manner. A side slip occurred, and Mr. Fisher lost control of his aircraft. It seemed probable that his losing control was caused by his being thrown forwards into the elevating gear, thereby moving this forward involuntarily, which would have had the effect of still further turning the aircraft down. Mr. Fisher was thrown, fell, or jumped out of the aircraft when the latter was at a considerable height from the ground, and was found some 60 feet in front of the wreckage. In the opinion of the committee, it is possible that if the aviator had been suitably strapped into his seat, he might have retained control of the aircraft. The Civilian Aero Club Safety Committee investigated both military and non-military accidents, and shortly after their formation they gained the power to order a police presence at crashes to preserve the evidence, as well as providing evidence to the coroner's office. By 1913 they'd moved to Farnborough, where they took over a building adjacent to the Swan Public House. They became part of the Aircraft Inspection Department under the auspices of the War Office, who also laid down orders for the conduct of investigations, in that the Chief Inspector of Aeronautics was required to report to them. By 1915, the post had become exclusively one of crash investigation, as the Inspector of Accidents, a post that has remained unchanged to this very day. By now, the renamed Accident Investigation Department had moved to London, and by the end of the war the title had become the Accidents Investigation Branch, a name that we recognise today. It was a fully independent civilian organisation. Orders were promulgated by the government to ensure that crash wreckage was to remain undisturbed until the arrival of an accident investigation team. This sometimes meant that airfields remained littered with wrecked aircraft until a team could be brought to investigate the accident. Records show that in the Royal Flying Corps, 8,000 personnel lost their lives in flying accidents not related to combat, leaving some flying fields looking more like junkyards than military airfields. Before the end of 1918, the reassembly of wreckage was already a tool used by investigators to establish causal factors, leading the way for future methods of finding out the reasons for accidents. The Accident Investigation Department had been tasked by the British Secretary of War to look into the preponderance of accidents which featured monoplanes. Despite the design of single-wing aircraft being exonerated, prejudice against them continued in the Royal Air Force right up to the Second World War, which accounted for an entire generation of slow biplane fighters entering service. These obsolete aircraft were slower than the bombers of the time, a ridiculous state of affairs. Finally, outdated thinking evolved to encourage the production of aircraft such as the Hurricane and Spitfire. 101 years ago, the British government issued the Air Navigation Regulations of 1922, formed pursuant under Section 12 of the Air Navigation Act of 1920. This formalised the organisation that had already existed and its standardised procedures. Accidents were first subjected to a preliminary investigation by the Inspector of Air Accidents, followed by a formal investigation carried out in court. Secondary proceedings were initially held in open courts, but became private in 1951, with only those reports the Secretary of State deemed necessary for publication made available to the public. Since then, public access to accident reports has been improved, and by 1969 all reports were made publicly available. Another interesting change that took place in the same year was the redefinition of the purpose of the board's investigations. The initial 1922 regulations allowed for a degree of blame to be ascribed, but now investigations are conducted with the primary purpose of avoiding future accidents. Despite some changes along the way, most of the initial principles have stayed the same, reflecting the commitment then and now to improving aviation safety through accident investigation. Most countries typically have a team of investigators at their disposal to research air crashes that occur in their airspace or involve their aircraft. In the United States, this role is filled by the National Transport Safety Board, NTSB, while its neighbours to the north have the Transport Safety Board of Canada, the TSB. The NTSB dates back to 1926, when the United States Congress charged the U.S. Department of Commerce with investigating the causes of aircraft accidents as part of the Air Commerce Act. That gave rise to the Civil Aeronautics Board's Bureau of Aviation Safety, which was created in 1940, that evolved into the NTSB following the consolidation of all transport agencies into the Department of Transportation. In 1974, it was recognized that the responsibilities of the Department of Transport, which affect safety, should be investigated by an independent organization. As such, Congress established the NTSB as a completely separate entity outside the DOT, reasoning that no federal agency can perform properly such investigatory functions unless it is totally separate and independent from any other agency of the United States. Since its inception, the NTSB has investigated around 152,000 aviation accidents and thousands of surface transportation accidents. On call 24 hours a day every day of the year, NTSB investigators travel throughout the country and to every corner of the world to investigate significant accidents and develop factual records and safety recommendations with one aim: to ensure that such accidents never happen again. The GO teams comprise specialists in fields relating to the incident who are rapidly deployed to the incident location. The teams can have as few as 3 or as many as a dozen people depending on the nature of the incident. They will usually include experts in cockpit voice recorder analysis, air traffic control, aircraft performance, human factors, metrology, flight data analysis, aircraft structure and parts, survival skills, maintenance and metallurgy. Following the investigation, the agency may then choose to hold public hearings on the issue. Ultimately, it will publish a final report, which may include safety recommendations based on its findings. Perhaps a surprise to some, the NTSB has no legal authority to implement or impose its recommendations. They are often implemented by regulators at the federal or state level or individual transportation companies, but they are not required to. However, the NTSB puts out a most wanted list of transport safety improvements which highlight safety-critical actions that others need to take to help prevent accidents and save lives. The third leg of the stool is the International Civil Aviation Organization, which, in Annex 13 to the Convention, lays out recognized standards and recommended practices for aircraft accidents and incident investigation. First adopted in 1951 following the Chicago Convention, the Annex outlines the standards and recommended practices that should be employed during accident investigations that are expected of member nations. It also defines such things as what an accident is. in that it is an occurrence associated with the operation of an aircraft which takes place between the time any person boards the aircraft with the intention of flight until such time as all persons have disembarked, in which a person is fatally or seriously injured as a result of being in the aircraft or direct contact with any part of the aircraft, including parts which have become detached from the aircraft, or direct exposure to jet blast, except when the injuries are from natural causes, self-inflicted or inflicted by other persons, or when the injuries are to stowaways hiding outside the areas normally available to the passengers and crew, or b. the aircraft sustains damage or structural failure which adversely affects the structural strength, performance or flight characteristics of the aircraft and would normally require major repair or replacement of the affected component, except for engine failure or damage, when the damage is limited to the engine, its cowlings or accessories, or for damage limited to propellers, wingtips, antennas, tyres, brakes, fairings, small dents or puncture holes in the aircraft skin, or c. the aircraft is missing or is completely inaccessible. ICAO gives all the help needed for a nation to compile a comprehensive report laid out in a logical manner, and they also give a comprehensive list of measures which promote accident prevention, such as a state should establish a voluntary incident reporting system to facilitate the collection of information that may not be captured by a mandatory incident reporting system. A voluntary incident reporting system shall be non-punitive and afford protection to the sources of the information. A non-punitive environment is fundamental to voluntary reporting. Over the years, the accident investigation organizations in most countries have ensured that a just culture exists within aviation that is the envy of many other professions. Put simply, under just culture conditions, individuals are not blamed for honest errors, but are held accountable for willful violations and gross negligence. It is often described as an atmosphere of trust, in which people are encouraged and even rewarded for providing essential safety-related information, but in which they are also clear about where the line must be drawn between acceptable and unacceptable behavior. And so say all of us.
I think this is an example of very acceptable behavior. Doing another fantastic plane tail, Captain Nick.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Jeff. It can be a bit of a dry old subject sometimes when you're trying to deal with big organizations like ICAO and NTSB, but they have fascinating insights into particularly the early days of accident investigation and the change that occurred when they stopped just looking for someone to blame and moved to this wonderful safety culture that we have nurtured over the years, where we can admit our failings so long as they are genuine failings and not deliberate mistakes or deliberately concealed errors, that sort of thing, if safe in the knowledge that there will be no punitive action taken against us, which I think is fantastic. And this just culture is fundamental to us maintaining the sort of safety records that we do.
It absolutely is. Well, again, very nice plane tail. Thank you, old pilot, for that.
Cheers, sir.
Yeah. All right. I don't know. Are you going to go to bed now, Captain Nick, or are you going to stay up a little bit
I can
longer?
hang around for a few more, sir.
Okay. Let's crack on. We only have a few more anyway. So, here's a good one. This is 6, you say? How about 5? Okay. This is from some feedback, audio, or actually video feedback from Mohammed. Happy New Year from Iraq.
What a shame Mohammed has left the chat room. He was here earlier.
Yeah. Well, it's awfully late there.
It is.
Oh, he's taking a trip to Basra tomorrow. Basra. Happy New Year from Iraq at Baghdad International Airport. This video I have attached. It was when we were on duty. We celebrated the New Year at the tower and the honor of cutting the cake. It was by Mr. Hazim because he will retire soon. The nice moments I spent with my colleagues in the tower, but the most nice and emotional moments are watching the fireworks from the tower. It's nice to hear the voices of fireworks, the sounds of happiness, joy, and celebrations after dark years of violent sounds or voices. It's nice to see fire, in quotes, works after times that my country was on fire. Maybe we have issues, but it's normal like any country's economic crisis, political crisis, or social problems. But thankfully, no civil war or people murdered based on backgrounds like it's happened before. I'm glad that my country is moving forward to peace. Yes, I admit it's slow, but at least it's still moving. I wish you a year full of happiness. Best regards, Mohammed, in Baghdad, Iraq.
Yeah, well said, Mohammed.
Yeah, and he sent this video, as I said, so let's take a look.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Oh, bring us some figgy pudding. Oh, bring us some figgy pudding.
Ah, the figgy pudding.
Yeah, I wonder if you can get figgy pudding there.
I don't know.
Oh, look there. Yeah. Well, almost figgy pudding. Looks like a nice cake.
Yeah, cut the cake.
Oh, they're up in the tower.
Yeah.
Having cake and they've got the candles lit.
All right.
Well done.
Isn't that nice?
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of fireworks off in the distance. Yeah. Crazy. All right. Yeah, really. Thank you for putting that together. That was a lot of work. Yeah, we do love video.
Fun,
yeah. All right, and we wish you all the blessings for a very safe, peaceful, prosperous New Year over there in Iraq. All right, let's continue on with this from Robert Tucker. I don't know where he's from.
Marietta, probably.
Yeah, formerly of Marietta. This is Robert. Let's see. I came across this unique documentary about the founder of Air Florida today, Eli Timoner. His youngest daughter, filmmaker Ondi Timoner, began documenting her father's life in February 2021 as his health began to fail following a hospitalization. The resulting film, titled Last Flight Home, had its premiere at the Sundance Film Festival in January of last year. Following Sundance, MTV Documentary Films acquired the worldwide rights to Last Flight Home. And then we'll have a link to that in the show notes, a Wikipedia about that. And yeah, and that's pretty, he just wanted to make everybody aware of this, I guess. So, I don't know what else to say. Air Florida, that tragic Air Florida 90, I think it was, that crashed out of Washington National and hit the bridge, and so many people.
Potomac disaster, yes.
Yeah. They said, I read a little bit of this Wikipedia article where it talks about the fact that the airline really never recovered from that. It continued operating for another year or two, I believe, but it finally just succumbed to the because of all the aftermath of the crash.
Yep.
All right.
Very sad.
Thank you, Robert. Hope everything's all right in Tucker, Georgia. All right, let's see. I'm going to have to get a slide up. Liz has left her post for a little bit. And let's see. Let me go to this slide. Okay, get ready to show that. Okay. This is from Shumpai, or Shumpei. Hello, Captain Jeff. I am Shumpei. You took me from Huntsville, Alabama to Atlanta on August 10th in 2022. The attached picture was taken when I rode in your airplane. Yes, I'm the one that actually took that picture. And seated in the right-hand seat is my favorite first officer, Brent. Okay, he continues. I go to University of North Alabama in Alabama now, and I will transfer to Delta State University in Mississippi and start studying on how to operate airplanes in August 2023. Although I am from Japan, I want to become a pilot, especially an airline pilot, in the future in the U.S. I've recently researched how to become a pilot in the U.S. Since you are a pilot in here today, I want to ask you about this. Your business card says that you are Chief Pilot APG Crew, and I researched your group, Airline Pilot Guys Show. Is your group different from airline companies such as Delta Airlines, American Airlines, or United Airlines?
No, we're much better.
Oh, yeah, we are different. Much different. He says, I flew with Acme on that day, but does this mean you belong to both Acme and your Airline Pilot Guys Show group? Well, I understand.
No, he's caught you now, isn't he? You're in a bit of a cleft stick, Jeff.
So I think that when your primary language is not English, and we English folk like to use sarcasm and irony, it's probably something is lost in the translation, and I think that he believes that our show is, or maybe he didn't understand that the business card represents the show, and we just call ourselves pilots, chief pilots, that kind of thing.
So he thought you were the chief pilot of a real airline.
Yeah, well, I'm not. Well, no, I am. I'm chief pilot of Acme Airline, but this is very confusing now because I'm not using my real airline name right now, and he's like really confused. Sorry, Shumpei. One of these days, when you are going along in your journey and we meet again, I'll try to explain this whole thing to you or clarify. Yeah, I don't think I can do it justice while we're doing this on the air. And there are some things, some identifications of airlines and stuff I have to use, and I just don't want to do that on the show on air. So anyway, but it was cool. Thank you very much for following through and sending in the photo of yourself and Brent in our 717 cockpit, Acme Airlines. Yeah. It was, yeah. So
good luck in your studies and your wish to become an airline pilot. Good luck in that.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're with you along the way, and if you need any help with anything or have any questions about anything, please be sure to send us some feedback. No, Brent and I did not scare Shumpei off. And I thought it was interesting today. We were flying for our first flights, 2 flights today on this trip. We're Atlanta to Huntsville and Huntsville back to Atlanta. And while we were going from Atlanta to Huntsville, Brent said, because I mentioned we were going to be recording the show today, and I asked him, well, you're more than welcome to join me today. Because I'm busy. But he said, what are you guys covering today? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, ironically or coincidentally, you remember that guy back in August, out of Huntsville? And so I showed him the picture. He goes, oh, yeah, I remember him. So I said, well, we're covering his feedback today. So that's kind of cool. All
Excellent.
Right. Next item.
By the way, have you had any barbecue while you've been there, Jeff?
No.
Ah.
Because we got
failed on the barbecue stand.
Oh, definitely a fail because, well, maybe they have barbecue here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Not known for its barbecue, actually.
Okay.
But no, I pretty much had to get into the room and just start setting up all the equipment for doing the show. And Then Rebecca came in and gave her a little tour of the current evolution of my on-the-road rig, and introduced. Oh yeah, I did introduce her to Hillel. He had to get out of it. She needed to use the bathroom, and I said, "Hillel, come on, go in the hall and do something. Occupy yourself out there." Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I didn't have a lot of time to go and do anything. I've apologized to Brent because I knew that I was being antisocial on this trip because we have an early morning go tomorrow morning, but the nice thing is it's only one leg back tomorrow, so that's what it is on paper anyway.
A one-legged pilot.
A one-legged pilot, yeah. And but I get to see him again on Monday through Wednesday, another 3-day trip. So we'll perhaps. Well, okay. Liz is saying, really? Yeah, I got a little confused. I thought I was not with Brent on this trip, and Liz even asked me, and I said, no, I'm with somebody else. And then this morning, driving to work, I get this text. It shows up on my Apple CarPlay thing, and it's Brent. I'm thinking, oh, what the heck is Brent up this early for, sending me a text? And I read it. Yeah, and I said, or he said, well, you up for some McDonald's chicken McGriddles? And I'm thinking, what? And I was like, how did you get this trip? He thought I was joking. I wasn't joking. I really didn't think I was flying with him today. So I am losing my mind, basically, what I'm trying to say.
Oh, poor Jeff.
I know. I didn't think I was flying with him until Monday, but I was wrong. All right. Let's continue with this feedback from Kit. He says, great story. P.S. Love the podcast. Thanks for all the hard work and dedication. Kit is a woman. Okay. And this is a link to a story from people.com. An 18-year-old pilot flying family to breakfast makes an emergency landing. Let's see. He says he heard his grandma crying in the back. I'm just glad it ended the way it did. Brock Peters, 18 years old, said of the landing he made while flying with 3 passengers over a mountain pass in California.
I was just going to say, just wait till you're an airline pilot, Brock Peters, and you can hear 300 people crying in the back.
Yes. Usually when I hear people crying, it's just because they can't believe how great that landing was. They're in awe, yeah. Just months after getting his pilot's license, an 18-year-old faced a scary situation while flying with his family in California. Brock Peters was taking his family to breakfast at Riverside Municipal Airport in a single-engine plane on Monday morning when he heard a pop from his engine while flying over a mountain pass. We're coming through the pass, and I hear a boom. It's interesting. He says boom. The journalists that are writing this piece say a pop. Yeah, boom is probably... Anyway, and then he hears a boom and loses all his engine power. Quickly, he realized the safest thing to do was to make an emergency landing. Well, probably the only thing he could do. Told CBS Los Angeles that due to the terrain, he was unable to notify the nearby airport tower, but that he did call his mom first.
Now, Mom, my engine's just failed. I'm going to
trying to decide where I'm going to put it down, but I just wanted to. No, I don't know. So I'm not really sure what the sequence of events is here with it, and I don't know. Sometimes this is crazy. Sometimes the people writing these articles don't quite grasp exactly what's going on. So I'm thinking maybe that was the call he made after he safely landed.
Yeah, I think that's probably the first call he made when he got on the ground.
That's what I think.
Safely.
Anyway, so I can hear my grandma crying in the back, he recalled. I'm like, I've got to tune her out, focus on what I need to do, and get this plane down safely after I call my mom and make sure everybody's okay. The emergency landing on El Cajon Boulevard took place shortly before 10 a.m. local time. So it was the Cajon Pass. Many of you out there, well, especially those living in California, know the El Cajon Pass. And in order to make the landing, the team had to find a way underneath a series of power lines, according to KTLA, including the pilot. 4 people were on board at the time, none of whom were injured. Although he's a relatively new pilot, having only gotten his license 4 months ago, Peter said that he knew he was going to make the landing. But to not hit anything, that's God's intervention right there, he told CBS Los Angeles. adding at another point during the interview, "I'm just glad it ended the way he did." Now, I think they had a video of him, and they were interviewing him over the interview, interviewing him on video, and he actually said, now it makes it sound like he used his incredible skills to avoid the power lines, but he said in this video interview, out of his own mouth, he goes, "After I landed, I looked up and saw all the power lines." He said, "I don't know how I didn't hit any of them." He didn't even see the power lines when he was coming in for the landing.
Yeah, I think that's quite likely. Yeah, an awful lot going on, but I'm glad he didn't clobber something.
Yeah. Tim Van Rem in our live audience says, "That takes cojones." Yeah, it does. The El Cajones Boulevard kind. Okay. Anyway, good job, Brock.
Yep.
And,
well done, mate.
Our best to your mom.
And your grandma. Has she stopped crying yet?
Yeah. Well, she's still out there crying because they left her on the side of the road. Yeah, this is a great way to end the show. All right. Number 9, our last one, Nick. And
all right.
This is pretty good. We got some feedback from Stan.
Hey, Jeff, I see you.
Do you? Well,
yeah.
Stan likes to dibble dabble with the Photoshop. Apparently, we were on the last episode. We talked about, I think it was the last one. Yeah, talked about the trying to reveal or not conceal. That is the pistol and bullets in a jar.
Putting your pistol in the
butter.
Yeah, in the peanut butter.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we were talking about what brand's best, and Liz, of course, said she prefers Skippy, and Nick, some brand that nobody has ever heard of.
Sun Patch, very nice stuff.
Okay, and I prefer Jeff. So we got this from Stan, so go ahead, reveal this amazing artwork.
I think your head's realistic. Falling off there, Jeff.
I don't know. It's been a while. It must have been when I was younger when this picture was taken, because I can't turn my neck that far anymore. I had darker hair too. So it's a picture of, well, apparently me with my head cocked at a very unusual angle, and I'm holding 3 jars of Jif. I'm sure it's smooth peanut butter.
Yeah.
And the caption says, "Smooth criminal."
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Oh, yeah. Tim says, "It's Captain Jif." and that's what Nigel calls me, by the way.
Oh, he does, doesn't he? Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
I don't think it has anything to do with the peanut butter, but or maybe it does. I don't know.
No.
It might be. It might be. Yeah. Yeah. Liz thinks that this should be part of our cover art, perhaps. Sorry for that to the person out there that gets mad when he hears me saying and repeating what Liz is saying. But
yes, it happens.
Yeah, it does, and I guess every once in a while I should play this what do they call that? Disclaimer. Thank you. Yes, yeah, if I can only find it, it's got to be here somewhere. Maybe I should find it before I start talking. Yeah, well, here it is. Okay, now we just played it. Thanks. See, I told you I could find it.
That was very smooth, Jeff.
I know, just like the Jeff.
No wonder you're such a smooth criminal.
Smooth criminal. All right, we're going to wrap this thing up.
Is that it? Thank the Lord for that.
Tie a pretty bow around it and throw it out the window. we're gonna point you to our website, airlinepilotguy.com. It's awesome. Just so many great things there. Check it out if you don't mind. And we are also. I needed to quickly say that my email provider. I just remember because of the website and domain name hosting and website hosting, all that kind of stuff. One of the things that's hosted is my email domain /domains. And the company that I do that with decided to switch over to another company. They're using Microsoft's Outlook or Exchange 365, Outlook 365. I don't know. It's some Microsoft email product. And it's completely messed everything up. So I do apologize. If you have sent me some email in the last week or two, like Captain Nick did, like about a week ago, that I don't remember receiving, I do apologize for that. It's because there are some potholes in the road of my email thing. So I'm trying to get that all straightened out. Hopefully I'll get that done soon. But if you send me something and you haven't, I think the feedback email is working okay, but it's my personal jeff@airlinepilotguy.com that's not working right. Yeah, we do want more feedback, so I think that I think it's working. Feedback@airlinepilotguy.com if you want to send feedback. And we're also on social media. And Nick, are you finished doing whatever you're doing there on the floor? Are you getting some more beers opened up or what? What are you doing there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was knocking all the empties over.
Oh, I was wondering what all that noise was.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So we're talking about social media.
Yeah.
And it's like we got a nice social media message for Captain Jeff just today. And of course, Jeff doesn't have the time to go to all our social media programs and review everything that comes in. So
I just don't want to.
Please, if you're going to want to send some feedback in, email. It's by far the best way. Anyway, despite that, Liz and I are often on Facebook, so you can look for that as Airline Pilot Guy, all one word. And on Twitter, it's @APG Crew, and on Instagram, it's APG Crew without the @. So obviously, we're not in the Instagram. I don't know if I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, and we're also
Did that work? Can I do that again, perhaps?
No, perfect. I mean, I couldn't have done it better. Let's continue with Slack. Let's see if Hillel's ready to go.
Your toilet's leaking, Jeff.
Hillel, you have time for Slack?
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
Okay.
Oh, you've got nice new Sony earpieces, I see. Headphones.
Me? Oh, yeah. I've had these for a while. All right, here we go. Here we go. Tell us about Slack.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks, Hillel.
I need a towel. I got shampoo in my eyes.
Sorry, I'll be right there. All right, I guess we need to wrap this
Send
thing
Rebecca
up.
in.
Yeah, well, she's already gone. She left. I should have mentioned that. She left right after the plane tail.
That's very sensible of her.
Yeah. And that was
nice.
nice.
To meet you, Hillel.
It was nice seeing her today, and she brought me some food, a nice pizza. Thank you, Rebecca. You're
wow.
a darling.
Great lady.
And some salad and some water. So anyway, yeah. So great to see everybody in our live audience while we do the show. Make sure you follow us on social media, check out the website, and hope to see you again next week on another episode of the Airline Pilot Guy Show. Until then, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and talons, Douglas.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
There you go.
Very good, Liz. That was good timing.
Yeah.
Turn off your recorders.
Recorders.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And stop.
You ever thought of joining the police force, Liz?
No. Actually, no. I have
I think
not.
you'd be very good.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I could have been a RCMP. I could have ridden a horse around and stuff. Yeah, a Mountie.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you could have been.
Badass Mountie.
I know.
With the fancy little hat.
Yeah, they're up here.
I
The
think they're
nickname
big
is
hats.
the Horseman. The
Horseman.
Horseman. The Horseman.
Oh.
She could be one of the horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah. Now, people in the live chat, do you have any suggestions for titles for the show, or has Nick got something to work with his peanut butter, or what does he want?
I could do peanut butter, but
I've only got one suggestion.
Oh, that's not very good, Liz.
Stop
3 hours and you got one suggestion. That's useless. What am I supposed to do? How can I work with this, Jeff?
Okay, lie.
Oh, crap. Now look what you've done.
Okay, here's my suggestion, Nick.
Go on then.
Stop shooting at the planes.
Stop shooting
I
at
like
the
that.
planes.
Stop shooting at the planes. That's from Beirut with love.
Yeah, I like that.
And the
That's
other
good.
one that came to mind, but I don't know how, where there's smoke, there's fire, because we had that smoky thing. But anyway.
I like shooting at the planes. I like that.
Yeah.
Stop shooting at the planes.
Stop shooting at the planes.
A mug from Samoa. Is that you talking about Jeff? A mug from Samoa?
Oh, I forgot to put water in here.
At least it wasn't red wine or something.
I don't think I got any of my equipment. Well, my personal equipment I did, but not my electrical equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. This is my mug.
Bye, Tim. Stay dry and hope the storm.
Oh, yeah. Glad you made it back home, Tim. Glad we were entertaining for you.
Big storms out in California today. So.
Lots of rain, I guess, huh?
Pineapple Express.
Oh,
So can you
yes.
work with those fabulous suggestions or that one suggestion?
Oh, I haven't got much alternative, really, have I?
Well, what
You useless pair.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm such a failure.
Stop
No, you're
shooting at the
not.
plane. Actually, I quite like stop shooting at the planes. That's good.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah. I've been visiting men with white flags and
Exactly.
actually airplane flying by, Captain Jeff leaning out, white flag. Stop
like
shooting
it.
at my plane.
Quit shooting at my plane.
Exactly.
All right.
Well, thanks,
Very good.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks
everybody.
for joining us.
All right.
Yes, good.
See you
Cheers.
see
The
you next
warden's
week.
going to shut you all off now.
Bye, everybody. Oops, hang on. Hit the wrong button. There we go.